like to call the March 20th, 2018 Sacramento County Board of Supervisors to order. And Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisors Cerna, Kennedy,
Here.
Frost,
Here.
Natoli,
Here.
Peters,
Here.
and you have a quorum.
Thank you.
This meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the Local Government Affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse cable systems. The meeting is closed captioned and is webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will be repeated Friday, March 23rd at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any local library branch. Members of the audience wishing to address the board may sign up at the kiosk or fill out a speaker slip and hand it to staff. When the chair calls your name, please come to the podium. Also, please silence your electronic devices.
Okay, would everyone rise and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For your consent matters, you have items 1 through 44. You also have an off-agenda item. I do need a motion for your board to determine the necessity to hear this matter. This is a communication received and filed item for the travel of Supervisor Patrick Kennedy to Washington, D.C. from March 3rd through 7th related to county business.
Move the item.
Second.
Please vote.
Unanimous vote. Okay, and for your consent matters, for item 6, I do need a motion to continue this to April 24th. Authorization to contract with KP LLC for consolidated utilities billing and services, and bill print and mail, bill online presentment, and customer portal services.
So moved.
Second. Please vote. And I would note there's a member of the audience that was planning to speak, but that item is being, I don't know where you are, but that item is being continued to April 24th. So, thank you. Oh.
And then we also have item 31. I need a motion to continue to April 24th. Authorize First Amendment to the contract with Paul Gumminger for the period of 1 year in the amount not to exceed $190,000 for design review services.
Chair will move. Second. Please vote.
Unanimous vote. And that concludes my notes for your consent matters.
Okay. Do any members of the board have any comments on consent items? Mr. Natoli?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we could, just on items 23 and 24, excuse me, 22 and 23.
23 and 24, or 22 and 23?
22 and 23, the two animal care items.
Okay. Item 22, authorization to accept additional Central Valley high-intensity drug traffic.
It's 24. It's 23 and 24 then. The two
23 and 24.
The two animal care items,
Okay.
yes. I'm sorry. Yeah, 23 and 24, I'm sorry.
No problem. Item 23 is delegate authority to the Director of Animal Care and Regulation to enter into First Amendments to contracts for emergency veterinary services in fiscal year 17-18. Item 24 is approve agreements with Animal Spay and Neuter, a nonprofit clinic, to provide low-cost spay, neuter, and vaccination services in county clinic building, spay, neuter of cats for return to field program, and spay, neuter of sheltered animals as needed.
Okay. Just, I wanted to call two items out. First, in item 23, just to note that certainly supportive of the items, and wanted to call attention, though, to some of the good news. I think that the work certainly of our animal care staff, but also working in concert, we're obviously under some circumstances where animals are injured or mistreated and so forth, working very hard in some of these cruelty cases, as well as injured animals to save their lives, get them adopted out, and that it contributes to the 90% plus live release rate. And I wanted to just note that certainly as part of this contract amendment. And then on item 24, Again, I want to thank our staff for their work and certainly the partnership with Animal Spay Neuter. When I saw the number of spay neuters during the term of that contract, were upwards of 25,000 spay neuters through a combination of efforts. That means a tremendous amount, I think, certainly to the shelter overflow that we've experienced at times, but certainly I think to the interest the public has in good animal spay neuter practices. And so I wanted to compliment that. And just note, I've had a conversation with the county executive and certainly with Mr. Leonard this morning that it mentions in the report itself that our policy objective or endeavor is for a 3-day turnaround for spay-neuter. And again, I know that we've been working very hard to actually have animals ready to be adopted and that they're spay-neutered the day that people adopt them. That should be our goal. I think it is our goal. It should be reflected in our staff reports, and that 1 day or 2 days we may get to that at some points in time, but I think that ought to be our goal, and we ought to continue to say that and say that very clearly, and that's our goal, and we ought to work towards that. And if we don't make it sometimes, then fine. And so I don't know if there's any comments, but I just
no specific comment. I agree that
I don't know if that's working, Rob.
Is your mic on? I think what Rob's trying to get at is.
Okay.
I think what Rob's trying to get at is we do agree with you. Our goal is to get it same day. And that's what we will make sure that we strive for that.
Again, that's our goal, and we may not hit that every day or
Correct.
all the time, but that'll be our stated goal.
That's our benchmark.
Okay, very good. So,
anything else?
And just one compliment on item 30, if we could, to our staff.
Item 30 is the Rosemont Area Streetlight Project, bids to be received on April 5th, the environmental document, categorical exemption.
Okay, I wanted to thank our Department of Transportation, our staff. We had a couple community meetings, and this is, again, a project to reinvest in some of our older neighborhoods, and certainly in the Rosemont area. We had a couple of good community meetings. There was a good turnout. People were very pleased to note that streetlights were coming to their neighborhood. We had one resident who was a original resident, been there since 1962, and I think found it almost hard to believe that street lights, or safety lights in this case, but will be wired for street lights. And so I just want to thank our staff, thank the community for their interest, and look forward to the project going forward. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone on this side? Okay. I would like to have the record note that I'm recusing myself on item 2 and 29 for a potential conflict of interest, and that's also going to be on item 57, which, if you would call that so that Mr. Kennedy can handle that.
Okay. For item 57, I do need a motion to continue this to April 10th. This is the appointments from your own ranks to the South Sacramento Conservation Agency.
Is there a motion to continue?
So moved.
Second. Please vote.
And the motion carries with Supervisor Peters recusing.
Thus ends my day in the spot.
I'm sure there's a gold star out here somewhere. Before we go on to our regularly scheduled agenda, I wanted to take a moment and note the return and welcome back of Bruce Wagstaff to head our Health and Human Services. For those of you who didn't know, he was here for several years and moved off to Santa Clara County to work there, but always took the train because he knew he was coming back. So he's back as interim. So welcome back, Bruce.
Okay, we need a motion on the consents.
Oh, so I'll move consent. Anyone else? Second. And we have a second. Thank you for the reminder.
Mr. Natoli? Unanimous vote on the balance. Okay. Item 45, recognizing Corey Center for 30 years of service.
And I believe John Corey and her brother John are up.
Dave Camachero is going to present.
I had a public comment on that.
Okay, then please wait. I'm sorry, we have a new notification system here, so this is the first time I'm using it. I also want to note, evidently we didn't get the word on a resolution, so we'll get that out to you later.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Peters, Supervisors. We're here today to recognize Corey Center's 30 years of service for the County of Sacramento. In keeping with her humble nature, I have just a few short points of interest, and then Corey has an actual Post-it note of things she wants to talk about. So Corey Center was hired February 28th, 1998 as an account clerk, level 1, revenue reimbursement, earning $7.29 an hour. In 1988, the Calgary Winter Olympics had just ended. Ronald Reagan was president, and Black Monday had been just a few months earlier, the prior October, where the Dow dropped 22% and ended at 1,738.74. The average median price in Sacramento was hovering around $99,000. By the year 2000, Corey had been promoted to senior accountant in the then Human Resource Agency, and by middle of summer 2000 had taken over the deferred compensation program. The Dow stood at 10,447.89, and the median price of a house in Sacramento had moved up to $149,000. At the time, we sent $27 million annually to the 457 plan. Corey and her team of 2 worked tirelessly throughout that decade to boost up participation, but by the layoffs in 2009, 2010, Corey became a one-woman show and ultimately, basically, was responsible for the next decade worth of heavy lifting. She'd work phones and emails, handle walk-ins, presented at new employee orientations and retirement sessions, pestered new managers to contribute to start their 401A, entered in vacation buyback deferrals, and reminded nearly everyone to complete their final compensation amendments before they retired, maximizing their tax savings. All with one goal: save, save, save. Her favorite phrase is, "It's never too late to start saving for retirement," and I think that's reflective of what's happened since then. She's always been positive and upbeat, humorous and compassionate in the office, and is constantly expressing her gratitude and thanks that she has had such a wonderful job with fantastic people surrounding her. Today, the Dow is at 24,700. The median price of a home in Sacramento is over $300,000. We send $56 million annually to the 457 plan. There are 15 millionaires in the plan. 300 more people have over $500,000. And the fund today stands at $1,059 million, contributed and almost entirely to Corey's efforts over the last 10 years. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Corey for a few words, and thank you. And by the way, it's also her retirement month. Her last day at work is next Thursday. Congratulations, Corey.
Thank you. I want to thank the county for,
In the middle. There you go.
I want to thank the county for the tuition reimbursement program. That helped me complete my education and the opportunities allowed in the county to move. The 457 plan, it's not just me. I'm just the contact person here in the county. I work with 3 Daves: David Villanueva, David Comachero, David Devine, and there's a David Matusky in the Chief Investment Office. We have a great advisory committee. We also have the Department of Finance, the Chief Investment Group that works on the plan. And Fidelity, our vendor, has been a great asset to me. I also want to thank the employee benefits family. They're my family during the day, and I am going to miss them. I also want to thank my own family for coming. They supported me all through the years. So I just want to thank the county for all the opportunities that I've received and the education. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, and thank you for all your hard work. Corey, we do have one speaker. I think you know him, John Hartman.
I don't know. I'll tell you after.
I think we got a reminder that today is her day, not everybody else's day, so everybody she thanked. Supervisor Peters, members of the board, good morning. My name is John Hartman, and I'm a resident of Arden Park. I come in front of the Board of Supervisors this morning to talk a little bit about my big sister, Corey Center, who retires at the end of this month. Today, she is called before this body to be congratulated for 30 years of work with the County of Sacramento. I know there will be a lot of nice things said about her from her department, and I wanted to add just a little background on why Corey is such a special person that may not be as well known to our work community. Our parents immigrated from Holland with a sizable young family, even before I was added, in search of opportunity. My siblings not only had to adapt to a new home, but integrate into its culture. Corey accomplished this, graduating from Loretto High School, coincidentally with our former DA, Jan Scully. Corey took on a number of jobs from the old food circus at Arden Fair through the almond growers. When I was younger, my siblings were already starting off with their own families, and my parents were slowing down a bit. Corey, however, never let me miss a beat as a kid. Corey and my other sister took me to Disneyland for the first time. Corey brought me to my first Oakland A's game and always let me hang out at her house. Knowing she didn't want to work with almonds for the rest of her life, she sought out training and education to take on something new. When I was attending Sac State, I was proud to be going to school with my sister. I vividly remember running into her occasionally on campus and working together in the admissions office just so we get priority to get classes for the next semester. As I grew older and started my own family, Corey was always around. Corey was our main babysitter for my two boys, one who was here today. If there was any complaint I ever had about Corey, however, is that she spoiled the heck out of my two boys. Many a weekend, she would show up at our house with a box of donuts or schedule a date with my kids, bringing them out to eat or enter the latest movie. When attending work conferences, we could always expect to see a bunch of the trade show giveaway toys for her kids. She loves them immensely, as she does all her nieces and nephews. Corey has not only successfully completed 30 years of service to the county, but continues to successfully live a wonderful life. She has raised two wonderful daughters, both one who currently is serving the county right now and one who has in the past. We are a very strong and close family, and Corey is one of the cornerstones. We are excited to be with her today as she embarks on the next step of her wonderful life. Thank you.
Thank you
Very
for that nice
John.
tribute.
Yeah.
John, are those flowers for Corey?
Yes.
You want to have Corey come back up and receive the flowers? As embarrassing as it is, Corey? Probably ought to get a hug. Okay. Next item.
Item 46, presentation of resolution celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Twin Lakes Riding Club of Orangeville.
I believe Supervisor Frost has this resolution.
Yes, and at this time, I'd like to invite the Twin Lakes Riding Club's president, Bruce Lawrence, along with longtime members Carol Shoemaker, Anna, and Rowdy Fernandez, and I think there might be a couple of others here to come up to join me at the podium.
It was hard to pick the cowboy out of the crowd. Got his hat on.
How you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Hi. How you doing? Good.
So this morning, we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Twin Lakes Riding Club in Orangeville. And the Orangeville community is known for being the largest equestrian community in the Sacramento County area, and the Twin Lakes Riding Club has been a part of that for the last 50 years. And I remember back in 90, I guess you were established in November of 1961, and I was a young, strapping 7-year-old running through the fields of Orangeville at that time. Wow. I lived in Orangeville at that time. Orangeville Twin Lakes Riding Club was named by the then editor of the Orangeville News and Folsom Telegraph, Ted Hubbard. They were established in November 1, 1961, and became incorporated in 1968. They support local events, hold horse shows, host horse health clinics. The Twin Lakes Riding Club is a nonprofit organization whose purpose is to stimulate interest in horses and horsemanship, as well as to foster and conduct activities with horses and the equestrian community. The Twin Lakes Riding Club is also supporting the community with events. They hold the Fall Horseback Canned Food Drive, which benefits the Orangeville Food Bank. And as this year marks their 50th year, I want to present all of you with a resolution on behalf of the members of the Board of Supervisors, congratulating you for your organization of 50 years plus, your dedication to equestrian education, and all the help and all the things that you do within the community. Thank you so much. And this is for you.
Thank you.
And if you would like to say something, you are welcome to. Maybe introduce each person that I didn't acknowledge and say a few words.
I will just speak a few words. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Bruce Lawrence, president of Twin Lakes Riding Club, and I'd like to introduce some members. These are the folks that make this club operate. These folks have close to going on 50 years in the club, and I'd like to let them speak, because if they could, just for a moment, because they put in the time. Rowdy or Anna, would you like to speak? These folks are here have been members for 46 years.
I didn't expect to speak. However, I can't say enough good about Twin Lakes Riding Club. We together had 10 children that we raised, and they grew up in Twin Lakes Riding Club and learned a lot. You learn when you have animals to care for, and the discipline of riding and obeying the rules and having a good time. We built the club in many ways. We were, be it a cleanup or a painting party or a ride, and as I say, our children grew up in it and formed friendships for life. They're still good friends with the people that they grew up with, and our grandchildren and even great-grandchildren are still very much involved with people friendships that we had in the club. We lived in Orangeville for 25 years and still live near, and our daughter lives in Orangeville, and our grandkids, several of them live there, and have ties to it. And it was a fun club, many things, and a family club, and many family outings, and always something to do. We made motorhome trips even, made lasting friendships. We went to Hawaii with some of them. We went all the way across the United States with some of them in a motorhome trip. So it wasn't always just horses, but lots and lots of long-lasting friendships. And we will love them till the day we die. Thank you so
very
much.
And I'd like to recognize the folks in the back. As members Sharon Fells and Sharon Brunberg are also members of the club. And if anybody else would like to speak, Carol Shoemaker, she has been a member for somewhere around 43 years, give or take. Something like that. So if you'd like to speak, Carol, and if anybody else would like to speak.
I'm getting tucked in. I apparently am showing my label up the back of my shirt. I can't say how much
stand between the microphones. You don't need to hold it close to your mouth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't say how much I appreciate this recognition of this club. We are a family. We have been a family. Anna's one daughter lives across the street from me up the road. I'm kind of her second mom. All of our kids grew up with 15 mothers, so the kids learned where their responsibilities lie. It was not ignoring your children. This is more than just a horse club. This benefits the entire community because these young people go out and they have a good understanding of responsibilities. And thank you again for this honor.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for having us, and thank you so much for the recognition and the support of our club. In this day and age, it's really hard to see these kind of clubs maintain and survive in light of changes in lifestyles and focuses of families, but our club is committed to sticking around and making it and staying a part of the community and offering something that you don't see in too many places, and we are so lucky that we can continue to have this, and thank you so much for your support.
Great.
Where do you want the shot?
Let's face that way toward Tina.
Oh, there's our county. Can we get everybody in the front? Oh, can
The shorties in the front.
what looks good on this?
Right here.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, for your next item, item 47, resolution of necessity authorizing eminent domain action to acquire real property for the Old Florin Town Streetscape Improvement Phase 2 project, Power In Road to Florin Perkins Road, located at 8135 Florin Road.
Good morning, Chair Peters and members of the board. I'm Mike Morris, the Department of General Services. Not sure I can follow that act very well, but looks like a good candidate for the boys' ranch, though, I'm thinking. I'm just saying. Good morning. I'm here today to introduce this item, which recommends board approval for a resolution of necessity authorizing eminent domain action to acquire real property interests for the Department of Transportation's Old Florin Town Streetscape project. This project will involve the installation of sidewalks, bike lanes, landscaping, and a number of streetscape improvements within the Old Florin Town Main Street corridor. The subject property is located at the north side of Florin Road, approximately 350 feet west of Power In Road at 8135 Florin Road. The lot is approximately 1.27 acres in size and is improved with a commercial building occupied by the property owner AutoZone Inc. The property interests required for the project are an easement for public roadway and public utilities consisting of 9,684 square feet and an easement for temporary construction consisting of 679 square feet. The county obtained an appraisal from an independent appraiser and presented an offer to the property owner for the purchase of the easements I just mentioned. The owner accepted the county's offer and signed the acquisition agreement on August 8, 2017. However, the county remains unable to secure the interest in the subject property because the owner, AutoZone Inc., has been unable to deliver a clear title necessary to conclude the acquisition. Today's resolution of necessity and anticipated eminent domain action will provide for possession of the required real property interests and construction of the project while the title issue remains pending, and allow the county to acquire the easements through the eminent domain if necessary. Notice of intention to seek approval of the resolution of necessity was mailed to the property owner by registered mail at least 15 days before today's hearing. If you have any questions regarding the project, I have staff here available to address them.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah.
Mr. Cerna?
Thank you. Just a question about the frequency with which we run into this problem where we have trouble acquiring a clear title from a property owner.
And the number of RONs that I've come before you on this is the first time we've had a title interest issue such as this.
Okay.
So it's not common.
Is there some kind of time limit that we're being mindful of in terms of the time that we take action today versus the time we need to necessarily have that title issue rectified?
I don't know that there's a specific time criteria. That may be resolved more quickly. It's been in work for quite some time. The eminent domain action would allow us to continue the project while that title issue remains.
So this won't hold up any
It will not.
construction? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Motion?
I'll move the item.
Second.
Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item 48, update on the implementation of the Voters' Choice Act.
Morning.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here today. Thank you, Board.
Is this your last appearance before the board?
This is my last appearance before the Board, unless you hold an emergency meeting, so. Nope.
Before she retires, folks.
Yes.
Nothing other than that going on here.
Yes, before I retire. I'm here today to give you an update on the Voters' Choice Act. You've asked me to come back and just kind of an update to this. We were here in June, and we got approval to move to the Voters' Choice Act. We came back in December, and at that point I gave you a short update of where we were at that point. And we also talked about establishing the vote centers, and we approved the technology to move forward. So, moving forward, where have we got so far? Kind of a lot of exciting things. Just a little bit of background here. The Voters' Choice Act. Every registered voter in Sacramento County will be getting a ballot by mail. Now, this is Sacramento County. Only 5 counties are doing this Voters' Choice Act, which are Napa, Nevada, Madera, and San Mateo. So Sacramento is the largest county that is going forward with this at this time. Other counties can join in 2020. So every voter gets a ballot in the mail, and they can return the ballot by mail. They can return it at a drop box, at a vote center, or even our office. And anybody can opt to go to a vote center instead of mailing their ballot, if that's what they'd like. At a vote center, they'll have language assistance available and ADA assistance if needed. So where are we on the requirements? There was a whole list of requirements in this bill. So far, we have met all of these requirements. We have had the language assistance, the LAC, and the Voters Accessibility Advisory Committee, the VAC, established. We're holding regular meetings. They help advise us on best ways to communicate, best ways to reach the people that we need to, and to help us understand the needs of the language assistance communities here in our county. Our election advisory plan was required. We held meetings for that for the community, drafted the plan, put the plan together. The Secretary of State had to approve it. That is now on our website and translated into all the required languages. Another requirement was language and ADA workshops. We completed, or we will complete those this week, where we had to go into where we went into the communities with the different languages, held little workshops, and introduced the Voters' Choice Act and our voting system to them. Required was 2 informational mailings, which we call our postcards. The first one has gone out. The second one will be going out next week. That goes to every registered voter here in Sacramento County. And then public service announcements. This is one we are still in process of doing. And help with our CMO, we've got contacts with a lot of the TV stations and radio stations, and these will also be translated into all the required languages. So we're right on track for that. So what have we done so far? We have attended 193 events or made presentations. This is since we started back in June. So this has been a very busy year. We've done a lot this year. Not only events and presentations, but when we couldn't get in, we offered them posters or flyers or handouts. And this is just what our office has done. There's been a lot of partnership with the different communities that have also gone out and helped us out. On March 5th, we held an open house. At that point, we invited the media in for the morning session, the public in for the afternoon session. We had 11 media outlets there. We had 85 in our afternoon session that signed in, that we were able to get the word out about the Voters' Choice Act and to show them our new equipment. Like I said, we've held the public language workshops and the ADA workshops. We have videos. Those are being posted on our Sac County YouTube video page. With the help from DTEC, we've managed to put several of those videos together. Things like how to vote by mail, what does a vote center look like, that type of thing. We even have one video in sign language. Metro Cable's been a great help. We have 7 to 9 slides that rotate every month. We started that in March, and that will go through June. And we actually have a video as requested on one of the slides. We have an electronic billboard on Highway 99 close to Calvine, and that actually works out well because that poster or that showing on that billboard is the same thing that you'll see in the lobby of the administration building. High school, or the website, we've increased our website for a whole new page and a lot of information, presentation ideas, and different like flyers and posters that anybody can download and use. High school mock elections, we have 19 high schools signed up for the month of April. We will be going out to them, teaching them how to vote. We also encourage them to pre-register, which is a new opportunity for them, and teach them about the Voters' Choice Act. We've been to senior facilities. We've made 20 presentations at senior facilities. We have contacted 102, and we have sent flyers to over 68 of those. Our libraries are great partners. They're going to be hosting a public education workshop in the month of April. So at 7 different libraries, a 3-hour open house will be held, and the library is coordinating that with us. Media, lots of media. We have done newsletters in the cities. We have done newsletters in the county, in the unincorporated area. Many of you have picked up our articles and put them in your supervisor newsletters. So we've been very pleased with all of that. Our CMO helps us with our social media. We have, at least 3 times a week, we are publishing on social media. We put a flyer in the utility billings, and that went out to over 300,000 not registered voters, residents, just letting them know and encourage them if they're not a voter to get up and register to vote. Once again, the informational mailers were very helpful getting the word out. I've heard a lot of comments back from them. And we sent out posters. And not over 116 posters, and those have also been translated into many of the different languages. So, where are we now? Vote center sites. And I have to update this because even since I made the presentation, we are now at 75 of the 78 sites are confirmed. We're waiting for just a couple more. The letters are out. We're waiting for the confirmation to come back. Ballot drop-off locations, all have been selected. 43 have confirmed of the 54 that they are ready, willing, and able. Our voting equipment has arrived. It has been gone through the acceptance test, so that is all ready to go. We are continuing to train on the new voting equipment, and we are preparing the training for our vote center workers. We've actually hired 13 of our 96 needed inspectors for the vote center, so we're on our way for that. And we're continuing our outreach. It goes on and on. Every time we turn around, we make one presentation, there's 2 more to make because somebody else wants us to come out. So, at this point, it's 6 weeks until the election, or 6 weeks until your ballots go out, and 77 days until the election. So we're busy preparing the ballot, all 27 candidates for governor plus, and getting ready for the election. Are there any questions I can answer?
Questions? Ms. Frost?
Well, first, I want to thank you for your concerted effort to reach out to the seniors. And we have so many senior voters in the county of Sacramento, and that I know that meant a lot in my district. And I wanted to just ask you about the mailers. There were it seems like there were, in your report, 40,000 that were returned. Is that, that seems high, and I wonder, is there any way that, is that normal, and would it be worthwhile to try to verify the data, or how are you dealing with that?
Thank you. The 40,000 that were returned were some of them, unfortunately, deceased, change of address. Some of them needed an apartment number on them, and this is not an unusual number, considering we didn't have an election in 2017. You know, we didn't send anything out to these people. So it's not unusual, but we have taken those 40,000 cards. We have updated as necessary. We have sent, if we've got an address, we'll send out information to them, asking them to update their address, give us a confirmation, or if they've moved out of state, we send it to the next county. So all 40,000 cards have, all 40,000 have been updated, and they're ready to go. So we're good.
And when you have that completed list of the 78 sites and the drop-offs, will you be able to email that to all of us so we can include that in our community meetings and newsletters? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cerna?
Thank you. I do want to thank you, Jill, you and your staff for staying on top of this. My office and yours had pretty constant communication over the last several months, as I know you've had with other members of the board, with our expression of ideas, various ideas to help you in your mission to engage a very robust outreach campaign. I had a question about the criteria that are used to determine the location of the vote centers. I mean, I would assume you take into account things like population density and others. But can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, there are 14 what they encourage criteria to select a vote center.
These are criteria that are in statute?
In statute. And if I can find it. And we go through, yes, population density, isolated communities, car ownership is one of them. Trying to think, vote by mail usage, registration opportunities, okay, ability to be registered but not registered, that type of thing. So we go through all of those as we select. And then, of course, the facility has to meet the accessibility requirements, public transportation close by. So quite a few things.
Do you also take into consideration the juxtaposition, geographic juxtaposition to the vote centers, the two types of vote centers, the one that is open longer versus the one that is open shorter?
Yes.
Okay.
When we did the 11 days, the ones that were open 11 days, we tried to evenly distribute those throughout the county, and then we added on top of that the 4-day and evenly distribute those, and then once again with the drop-off boxes.
I'm looking at the map of the vote centers, both of the types, the ones that are open from May 26th to June 5th, and the others that are the last 3 days of the election right now on your website. And I note that in Natomas, that there are only 2 of the centers that are the 3-day centers, I'll call them. And then there's one vote center that's somewhat centrally located for the longer duration. And that's a community of roughly 100,000 people in and of itself. Is there any more room to consider adding any vote centers, the shorter duration ones?
We were hoping to have everything finalized by the end of March, which is next week, on all our vote centers with all the contracts in, so we could go to print, because these need to be printed in our sample ballot book, included with our ballots, and then, of course, on the website. And so not saying, these are things that we can look at, and the first go is going to bring back a lot of data for us to reevaluate before the November election. So, and we are putting a survey on our website and at vote centers to ask those types of questions. Was it conveniently located, that type of thing.
Okay,
So.
well, I would encourage you to maybe take another look at the broader Natomas community to see if you feel that there's any addition or change necessitated by just the sheer number of people that live in that part of the county. And then the other question I had is, you mentioned that there's a digital billboard on 99 that is being used to show information about the Voter Choice Act. Have you reached out to other billboard owners, including the city of Sacramento, to see if they would be willing to show the same information? Or Clear Channel?
Clear Channel. We have reached out. We have not been successful yet, but that doesn't mean we're not done trying. So at this point, the one on Calvine and 99 said yes. And usually the other ones with Clear Channel, working with them, they like a different type of a commitment. But we have contacted them. We don't have a commitment with them yet.
Okay.
Along that same line, if I could just set in, there's one on I-80 at Madison Avenue. And I think don't we have in our agreements on billboards in the county that they're required to do some
public service
announcements?
I do believe so, but I'll work with Jill to.
Okay.
I'll work with our CMO, double check on all of those.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Cerna.
Those are all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Natoli?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jill, thanks for certainly the work of you and your staff and all the outreach. Obviously, it's been a lot of nights and daytime hours spent, working to, I think, help the community better understand, not only the new processes that will be put in place, but certainly the importance of voting and and I think increasing certainly the visibility and accessibility for folks. I just wanted to make a couple of notes. One, I know we had a meeting last Friday, thanks to Alice, who's in the audience, and a number of other county staff met with City of Ileton folks. I talked with Mr. Villanueva last evening, and the vote center there, a 4-day vote center at the Ileton Community Center, will require some ADA upgrades of a fairly minor nature, but nonetheless very important. And I appreciate Russell Rawlings from Resources for Independent Living, and one of his board members wasn't able to attend, but Courtney and others, we got together and had a chance to meet with the city manager and with their public works director and county staff, both from elections and general services. And I think came up with a pretty good approach. It will require a bit of investment, and so again, I don't put it off on voter registration and elections. I'll look to Mr. Gill to find the necessary funding, which is fairly modest, to do those improvements in agreement with the City of Ileton. That's been a vote location going back at least 21 election cycles, according to what Mr. Villanueva said, probably much longer than that. And with some panic hardware and a bit of work in both the parking area and the area leading up to the community center there, the route of travel, I think we can, have an agreement with the City of Ileton to continue to use that in the future. And I would just note that it's the primary location, at least within a block or so, where both the South County Transit as well as the
Delta Breeze.
The Delta Breeze from out of Rio Vista connect there. So again, it's accessible by car, but certainly hopefully for folks who want to walk in or come by other means, by bus or whatever. And so I think it's pretty modest, and I know we've talked a little bit about it now, but again, it's a bit unique, but it'll be the furthest south the vote center that we have, and will serve folks certainly on the lower islands in the Delta Loop, but also from north of there, I assume from Walnut Grove and other areas of the Delta if they choose to. And I know Mr. Rollins made the point that he was going to actually cast his vote there. He was going to travel there to the center. And again, I know working with some of the disability rights, as well as obviously with some of our organizations that certainly promote the accessibility, I think we came up with a very good approach, and I want to thank county staff for their willingness to do the extra work on that particular location. I did want to ask, though, because we did get some correspondence, and it might be good for the record to have an explanation. We heard from the Sacramento ACT area congregations together, as well as from Mr. Erlingbush on behalf of some of the homeless organizations, about the decision that was made, at least this for the June primary, not to have a location at Loaves and Fishes or in that general vicinity. And I guess it'd be important to know whether we tried to do that and what the obstacles we ran into, and whether that's consideration for a future election cycle, again, recognizing that we're trying to meet a number of different criteria, as you pointed out, relative to voter accessibility and have them geographically, but also for other reasons located throughout the community. So maybe you could just shed some light on that, Jill.
Yes. At this point, most of the sites are selected. They kind of came in in February, where we had most of the sites selected. We are not opposed to it. However, we've already got a site really close, which is this building itself at this point. What we told them we would do is continue to look at it and gather data of how well June goes before we make any different or make a different selection. So we're kind of just said, let's wait and get some data, and then we will reevaluate for November.
Okay, so the closest vote center to, I guess, the 16th and Richards area is this one?
Yes.
This county building? What's the next one as you go further north then, up the corridor?
It would be, that I don't have.
Okay. Well, again, I'm sure other communities may like to have them as well, and we made some decisions about the number, but I think it's important just by point of reference because we did receive correspondence, as you're well aware. So, and I guess lastly, I just would want to, recognizing this is your last public presentation, at least before this board and then the board setting, thank you for your years of service. I know we'll probably get an opportunity to say that, privately, but publicly, to thank you for your leadership, your many years with voter registration and elections, and certainly I think the tremendous community public service you provided to the people of this community, and your good work, your hard work, and the example that you led by. So thanks, Jill.
Thank you. Mr. Cerna?
Thank you. I just wanted to note the correspondence that Supervisor Tully mentions with Mr. Erlenbush about the prospect of a vote center at Loaves and Fishes. Knowing that we're going to have one here, which is, I agree, relatively close to Loaves and Fishes, perhaps there's an opportunity working with Loaves and Fishes, maybe even with paratransit, to see if we could have them coordinate with one another to perhaps bring registered voters to the closest center, thereby making it a little bit more convenient.
Okay.
And if they can, if they are registered homeless, there's no problem with them registering. They can also just drop their ballot off in a mailbox. So if they want to go to a vote center, yes, the closest one is this building.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much, and have a great retirement.
Thank you.
Many years of service in the county.
Yeah. How many years?
Great many.
Great many. Over 30.
Over 30 years.
Over 30 years, yes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
A lot of elections.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Thank you very much.
I think I ran in half of them.
I think so. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. It's a receive and file, so we'll move on.
Item 49, you are acting as the Sacramento County Water Agency. Protest hearing for the Metro Air Park Special Planning Area Special Capital Development Fee for the Sacramento County Water Agency, and you're going to continue this to April 10th for adoption.
Good morning. Michael Peterson, Department of Water Resources. The hearing today complies with the legal requirements for reenacting the Metro Air Park Special Capital Development User Fee under the Proposition 218 process. The agency established Zone 50 over the Metro Air Park area for the purposes of collecting fees to pay for dedicated capacity in the City of Sacramento water supply system. That's the source of water for Metro Air Park. There are two fee components for Metro Air Park. One's a developer impact fee, and the other is a special capital development user fee. Today's hearing is regarding the user fee component. On October 18, 2005, the board adopted the special capital development fee along with the developer impact fee following the Government Code Section 66,000 process. However, County Council recently re-examined that process, and given that there was a user fee component, recommended that we revalidate the user fee through the formal Proposition 218 process to ensure that it's valid, that we can begin collecting that user fee with our new customer in the Metro Air Park area. No change was recommended to the formula for calculating the fee, simply that we revalidate the fee through the Prop 218 process. And that Proposition 218 process requires that we reenact the fee and follow the following steps. We sent a direct mail notification to all 71 landowners in the Metro Air Park area. That was completed on January 18th of this year. We offered public meetings and other outreach as needed. We did not have any requests for such. Today's hearing was published twice in a local newspaper, and then the final step is to carry out today's public hearing, adopt the ordinance reestablishing the user fee, and begin implementation of the ordinance. Out of the 71 private landowners in the Metro Air Park area, we received no protests. So we would ask that your board open the hearing, consider any protests, and close the hearing and adopt the ordinance.
Any questions before we open the public hearing? Okay. Open the public hearing. Mr. Peterson states there are no written protests. Madam Clerk, do you have any written protests?
I have not.
Okay. Seeing no one in the audience waving their arms, we're closing the public hearing.
Move the item.
Thank you.
Please vote.
Unanimous vote. Okay, for item 50, consider the installation of all-way stop signs at the intersections of Bruceville Road at Eschinger Road and Bruceville Road at Point Pleasant Road.
Good morning, Chair Peters and members of the board. My name is Luli. I'm here to present the item to propose the board to ask the board to consider 2 new all-way stop control installation on Bruceville Road at the intersection of Eschinger Road and at Point Pleasant Road in District 5. Bruceville Road, south of City Elk Grove, is a 2-lane road with adjacent land, consists of mainly farmlands and occasional houses. This segment of Bruceville Road has approximately 11-foot lanes with gravel shoulder and drainage ditches on both sides of the roadway. The area residents had made a request to reduce speeding on Bruceville Road and to install additional stop signs. Both intersections on Bruceville Road were evaluated for additional stop sign based on the engineering warrants per the state standards. There are approximately 3,000 vehicles traveling on Bruceville Road in both directions daily. There are about 500 cars on Eschinger Road and about 100 cars on Point Pleasant Road. The CHP's accident reports on Bruceville Road indicate a low accident rate along this segment, as well as at the 2 intersections. Based on the traffic evaluation, both intersections do not meet the standard engineering warrants for the installation of all-way stop control. Staff does not recommend additional stop sign on Bruceville Road at the intersection of Eschinger Road and at Point Pleasant Road. However, the board may consider other non-technical factors, such as community input and the roadway characteristics in reaching a final decision. This concludes the staff presentation. We're available to answer any questions from the board or the member of the public.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Natoli has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Lou, for your presentation, and I know that we have Mrs. Duarte and maybe others in the audience to speak, so we'll hear their testimony. But I do just want to point out a couple of things. We use the standard engineering warrants, and I know that in last couple of years, this board's had before it, similar considerations to different rural roads, and I would just point out, and I'm sure my colleagues are aware of this, but that in some of the more rural areas of the county, we're seeing changed traffic patterns. Folks are using apps on their cell phones and on their personal devices and in their cars, and we're seeing in this area, but in other areas, and I know we'll have probably some other requests that'll come through in the months to come, and I've had a good deal of discussion certainly with members of the Transportation Department staff, and stop signs aren't the answer to all the issues, but here on Bruceville Road, where your Eschinger connects between 99 and I-5, we've seen a significant increase in traffic. There's already one magnet for traffic that's been there for many years. That's the Rio Casimas Correctional Center that has a good deal of both employees, certainly the sheriff and others, but also visitations. But we're seeing changed traffic patterns, and I've had discussions with staff in some of the rural towns along the river, out in the Wilton area, in Herald areas, the areas surrounding Galt, and as I said, we'll see some of the requests. But in this case, we had a request last fall. Mrs. Duarte can talk about some of the concerns they have, but the speeds, even though it's posted 55, people will travel faster depending upon the conditions out there. And I do think that stop signs can be effective as long as we don't put them in too many locations where people will just disregard them totally. And I think the request is a reasonable one, and certainly want to hear from folks. But it may require us at some juncture to have in a broader discussion what we're going to do in rural areas of the county. And I'm not the only one on this board that has rural areas. Because we're seeing, thousands of cars passing through some of these rural areas, people that are passing in no passing zones. We've conflicts with certainly not only farming activities, but with, rural residents. And even though the shoulders may be gravel shoulders, it doesn't give people much ability if they're walking or bicycling to stay out of the way of oncoming traffic. And so with all that being said, I'm certainly prepared to suggest to my colleagues, what I think should be done here, but I want to hear from residents before we do that. So, thanks.
Thank you. I do have one speaker signed up. I only have a first. Well, I'm not sure if it's the first or last name. Duarte.
Yeah, Antoinette. Duarte.
Good morning. My name is Antoinette Duarte, and I'd like to introduce Colleen Geeser Adams, who has been a resident, her family, probably since the late 1800s. My family has lived on Bruceville Road since 1967, and my grandparents moved to Elk Grove from Tracy in 1949. So we've seen tremendous amount of growth in Elk Grove, and we welcome it, but we do not welcome the excessive speed on Bruceville Road. Of the 17 dairies that were in Elk Grove, we're down to 7 right now. And of the 7, 4 of us live on Bruceville Road. We have multiple dairy sites, properties that we transport feed on a daily basis from one property to the next. The concern we have is the excess speeding. We know that we cannot control, and we do not want to control the cars that are using Bruceville Road, just like when we go travel anywhere. But the speeding has gotten to the point it's very dangerous, not only for the equipment that we transport, also for the school buses. I'm sure the bus drivers are very concerned now with the safety of the children, even though they have the red flashing lights. Be surprised how many cars do not stop. Our post office, their drivers from the mailman is also quite concerned. I was aware of this meeting yesterday. I'd made an hour and a half of phone calls, and it took another hour going around the neighborhood talking to the elderly. And I asked that either they would write a letter or come down to the meeting. So being that the time was constrained, I'm asking the board to allow us to submit letters from the residents by Friday at least. Colleen wrote a wonderful letter, and I would like for the board to allow her to read it. But I also want to state before I do forget, the bicyclist that used to be on Bruceville Road is almost down to 0 right now because of the safety hazard of the speed. It's just unbelievable. It begins at 4:30 in the morning, and then it slows down after the commute of work, and then it picks up again around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And like I said, I would not bother the board with something as this, but I am very, very concerned about the safety of our residents and also the people who are not abiding by the many speed signs that we have on Bruceville Road. And I would also like to state that Bruceville ends on Lambert before it makes a right and it continues again to the correctional center. And our neighbor, Nancy Hardesty, has had numerous cars in her field because of the speed, and they don't have give enough time for them to stop. So in the middle of the night, she's out there calling 911 and having to help save people and to pull cars out of her property. So I'd like to introduce Colleen right now.
Before you do, I'd like to ask you a question. Have you contacted the California Highway Patrol, who manages speed in the county?
No, I've contacted the Sacramento County Sheriff Department.
Okay, the Sheriff's Department doesn't have anything to do with speeding, dealing with speeding in the unincorporated areas. It's the California Highway Patrol, and
but they go by and they see the speeding, but you know.
But if you complain,
yeah,
if you call and complain, we've found that seems to help, and they may want to come to a community meeting or something along that line, but I'd recommend it.
Okay. I would like to, there's two options or two proposals here for stop sign on Essinger and on Point Pleasant. I would really like the board to consider the one on Essinger. I believe the one on Point Pleasant is not necessary because it would be too close from Lambert to Point Pleasant to Essinger. So at least on the Essinger side, it would slow the traffic down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I didn't get, I'm sorry, we didn't hear your name, so would you please introduce yourself?
I'm new down here. I've never been down here before. She was mentioning to me...
I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Colleen Adams.
Thank you.
And she was mentioning the other day that the Highway Patrol did do some speed thing out there, and 75% of the people, she was telling me, were the police that are going to the jail that are speeding.
Off-duty officers.
Yeah, as they come and go from work. But my family has been on this property since my great-grandfather bought it in 1885. And Don, you knew my parents, Wally and Eileen Gieser, and my sister Karen Shipley, and Glenda Stewart, who the three of us now own it. But so when my dad was a kid, he said you didn't even have to look up when a car went by because you knew it by the sound because there were so few cars. But anyhow, yeah, the traffic has greatly increased recently, and the speed has gone way up. And most of the traffic, we have a lot of dairy traffic, trucks, trailers, hay balers, cultivators. At certain times of the year, the grape pickers go up and down the road and all of that. And so they travel usually below the speed limit. And these cars back up behind them, and then when they can, they're zooming past. Well, I live a quarter of a mile from the corner. And I'll see cars start to pass in front of my house, and there might be a line of traffic, and I know they can't get over before that intersection. I know they're probably still on the wrong side when they go through there. To pull out of my driveway, I have to make sure there's no cars coming for at least a half a mile or more in either direction, because you never know if a car's going to pass into my lane or coming south. They just go so fast. When there's an accident on 99 at south of Essinger, where the train goes over, and it goes over the Cosumnes River, all that traffic is routed down Camer and then down Bruceville. And sometimes that backs up for 3-4 miles, but if it doesn't back up fast enough, then cars are just speeding down there because they want to be on the freeway and get around. So that can be something. I recently attended the meeting for the Camer Road widening, and you were there, Don.
Yes.
An extension from 99 to 5. And at that time, they said it would probably be a 2-year project when they start, and they would close Camer Road except to local traffic. Well, even last winter when it was flooded most of the time, the cars from the city would still go down that road. But anyhow, if that closes for local traffic, which I'm sure it will have to, all of the traffic that is now on there is going to either have to go on Whitelock over to the frontage road, Elk Grove Boulevard, or it will come Essinger. And Essinger is a pretty good road. It's wider and stuff, so I imagine we will have a lot of traffic on Essinger when they start that. So that would be another consideration to putting a stop sign there. But there's a stop sign now at Camer, which is fairly new since December. Right. And then it's about 4 miles to Lambert, where Essinger would be about halfway in between. And it would be a good point to slow that traffic, because it it really moves. Sometimes you can just hear them coming from miles. So I would like you to consider it. I think if not now, very soon it's going to need to have a stop sign there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else signed up to speak. If motion is order.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I want to just thank Antoinette and Colleen for coming down today, and I think they reflect, obviously, concerns by many folks in the neighborhood, and I appreciate certainly them being reflective of some of those concerns. And I will, we can take the action this morning. I'm going to move that we approve the stop sign installation at Essinger, at Bruceville, and that we continue to monitor the speeds and the traffic volumes and safety issues, and certainly we can pin the item as it relates to Point Pleasant Road, because there is a smaller spacing there, but I think probably well overdue to have a four-way stop there at that location. So that would be my motion, to move that we approve the installation of stop sign at Essinger, four-way stop Essinger and Bruceville Road.
Second.
Please vote. Thank you.
Unanimous vote.
Great. Thank you both for coming down. And I just would note we were going to have a presentation a little later on the Camera Road extension. I see Pete and Mary Saunders here in the audience, so you're welcome to stay if you'd like to stay. But thanks again, Antoinette.
Do you know what time that will be? 11? All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Next item, please.
Okay, item 51, potential impacts of Senate Bill 1383, draft regulations on the county's solid waste program.
Good morning, Chair Peters and members of the board. It's my pleasure to be here this morning to share with you some information, and really this is, for our department, this is really the first step in this process. We're looking to share some information with you. We're looking to get feedback from you. We've been working closely with Natasha Drain and the lobbyists on several of the topics that we'll talk about, and then we may end up enlisting your help down the road to help change some of the rules and regulations once they become more firm. The information we have today for you is the best information that we have currently, but the regulations are still being formalized. We expect that that process will continue through the end of this year. With that. So today we're talking about really the two biggest pieces of the puzzle for our side, commercial, the county collection of recyclable materials and the curbside green waste program, and how 1383 potentially impacts those. This slide, when we were here in February talking about the curbside material, we showed this slide. I wanted to bring it back again because really what we're talking about is the garbage ton line. And we will talk in a couple slides later about the 136,400 tons. That's really what is targeted with 1383. As you remember, we started our curbside residential program, was implemented in 1997. And really, if you as I heard this in a talk from a Cal Recycle official last fall, when AB 939 was enacted, that was the 50% diversion goal, that statewide goal that was enacted back in 1989. There really was no infrastructure in place to deal with that, and that's really where a lot of communities started the three-cart system. The official that I heard last fall emphasized that SB 1383 will revolutionize the waste and recycling industry in California in the same way that AB 939 did. And we'll talk about some of those impacts as we go along. But we started our curbside green waste program in February of '97, and that gives you some brief history. Basically, we have a program where on the green waste side, we collect grass trimmings, prunings, things like that. In the green cart, that material, we send about 50,000 tons a year up to Butte County, where they used to do a blend of fuel for the power plants and composted the unders. The power plant market is pretty much disappeared, but that vendor is still doing a lot of composting. We have about 20,000 tons we collect in the south area that we use at the Kiefer landfill. We send it through a trommel system. We use it as ADC. So we kind of have the two programs going. Here's a chart we put in that kind of looks at the cost and the tonnage over the years. And again, it references the 50,000 tons at the north transfer going north to Butte County into the compost program. Senate Bill 1383 from Senator Lara was chartered in September of 2016, and it focused on short-lived climate pollutants. And really for us, the law applied to targeted dairies and landfills, and so of the levels that they're trying to reduce, really the one that we're focused on, or is focused on us, is really reducing the methane levels by 40%. That's targeting the landfills.
Could you pause for a second and define short-lived climate pollutants?
I need some help with that. Sorry for...
Sure. Sorry to interrupt.
Doug Cobalt, our program manager.
Good morning, Board. And so short-lived climate pollutants are those ones that won't last. The methane gas is the ozone-depleting gases, and so, but they're not persistent. They don't last for a long time. So it's a strategy to try and bring us back into 2013. They're pulling down to 2013 levels. And then eventually going to pull it back even further so that we can get rid of the problems we're having with climate change.
So it's the short-lived, I think I'm trying to understand, comparing it to long-lived.
Right, so they're here for a short period of time. That's my best explanation for it.
Like 18 months or
yeah, it's
like
just
that?
They go up, they deplete some of the ozone, they're gone.
Okay.
It's measured against carbon dioxide, which is the kind of the threshold measurement.
Okay.
So methane, for instance, has got a shorter effective life when it comes to CO2, the carbon impact when you measure it against something like carbon dioxide.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Natoli?
Yeah, just while Doug's there, if I could. Since we do have some of our dairy representatives and livestock folks in the audience, I'm just curious, how does it apply? Again, that's not the focus here, but so are there new regulations coming down in addition to all those that have already been translated for dairies and livestock operations as well?
So the California Air Resources Board was charged under SB 1383 to promulgate regulations. What they've chosen to do is to delegate down to CalRecycle for the methane gas emissions, and also the Department of Food and Agriculture for the methane gas. And so there should be a separate track. I'm not familiar with where they are right now. I have not heard anything that they're working on right now as far as the methane from the dairies. My understanding is that will be promulgated at some point in time, but I'm not certain as to when they'll be doing that.
And again, I find it curious. I mean, when Antoinette spoke earlier, we've already seen a decline in the number of dairies in the area between Highways 99 and I-5 in the area south of Elk Grove, and down to 7, it sounds like. And I know that some of our livestock operations, are very few of those that are still remaining of any size. And I guess I'd just be curious to know. So, Doug, is that something you could just send us a memo on, as to, give some information and keep us posted on that?
Absolutely. We'll look into it and find out where we are with that side of the house.
Thanks.
I do know the dairy issue was in the news a lot last summer, and specifically down in the Modesto area. There were some dairies that had already been working on their mitigation or collection programs. But we'll get you some information on that.
Thank you.
And just a reminder, at the landfill, we do use green waste as ADC. It does in other organic material, and we do have what we think is a very good collection system for the methane gas that we use, collect, run through a power plant, generate electricity that serves about 10,000 homes a year. So we think we run a pretty good program at the landfill. But as Doug mentioned, the State Air Resources Board delegated the waste side portion to CalRecycle. CalRecycle started about a little over a year ago, holding some different public forums. We're towards the tail end of their draft or pre-draft regulations. And staff has been very diligent about attending the meetings and keeping track of what's going on. There is one change on the slide at the bottom, the final formal workshop. Cal Recycle late last week moved that workshop to May 7th and 8th, which gives us a little bit more time. So 1383 is looking for a 50% diversion of organics out of the landfill by 2020 and a 75% diversion by 2025. So what I'm going to go through now are some of the highlights, some of the biggest issues that we see with the the regulations as proposed. That doesn't mean we certainly are working to change some of them, and we'll highlight some of those. But for example, the draft regulation for definition for organic waste. Organic to us currently means what's in the green cart: prunings, grass, tree branches. Under their definition right now, organic waste means solid waste containing material originating from living organisms, and waste products including but not limited to food waste, green waste, landscape pruning material. That all makes sense. Applicable textiles, carpet, wood, lumber, fiber, manure, biosolids, and sludges. Some of those materials will be a little bit difficult to handle in the residential program. Specifically because if you think about carpet and textiles, and they're going to be in a composting program, how do they get into the program? Are they going to compost? And if you think about a lot of carpet as plastic, is that really going to compost? So we kind of focused some attention on the yellow areas there, just to highlight those as they're currently in the draft regulations, and we're working to either modify those or remove some of those from the program if we can.
Could you pause for a minute? Mr. Natoli has a question.
Yeah, just quickly. So how does the carpet get in the organic materials category?
That's their definition.
Under what premise, though? When, as you said, there's a lot of, petroleum products in there, plastics and so forth. Maybe some of your fiber backing might be of a different nature, but I guess I don't see how you put carpets into an organic material category. I just don't, what is the definition how do you get there? Textiles, maybe, cottons and so forth, linens, but textiles that are, again, made of, the, plastic materials have petroleum products in them.
I'm right on the same page with you.
Well, I guess I was curious. So what is their train of thought, though? How do they take you there?
Supervisor Natoli, so I'll let you know that I'm also on the Carpet Advisory Committee for Cal Recycle to help orchestrate the new carpet recycling program. The majority of the carpet that is bought today and installed today or being ripped out today is polypropylene or nylon, and so it is plastic. This regulation is targeting wool, your carpets your rugs that you might have in your bathrooms that may be of a organic material. They specifically talk about applicable. They use the word applicable. It's a very small fraction. We question why it's in there at all, because all it's going to do is serve to confuse the public as to what they can put in the bin. You're right, this is not going to get recycled or composted, this material. It will be a problem for our composters. And so that's why we are pushing to try and have carpets and textiles. Textiles are another one where you've got the majority of the material is polyester, or at least polyester blends. And so again, it's not going to decompose in a normal composting system. And so that's why we're asking the state to reconsider adding these materials, because they represent a very small fraction of the waste stream as a whole. And on top of that, even a more slight fraction as an organic material.
Thanks.
And one of the problems that I have is, how does the homeowner know? If they're going to be putting this material in a cart, how do they know whether it's made out of wool or other materials? So I can see this being a real problem for our residents. What we've been suggesting in the meetings that we've had with different folks is our preferred definition below. Organic waste means food waste, green waste, landscape and pruning materials, non-hazardous wood, meaning non-painted, non-treated wood, and food soil paper waste that's mixed in with the food waste. So if you think about it, your pizza box, which we don't currently allow in the curbside program, would go into this organics collection. We think that's a better fit for the program. So we have a couple of slides here. This is actually Cal Recycle took in 2014 and looked at the residential waste characterization. And really the two biggest numbers there on the chart, the green area that's other organic at 45.2% and the paper at 19.2%. Those are really the two that we're targeting for discussion with 1383. This is a breakdown per Cal Recycle of what what's in those two percentages. So the top table is talking about the paper and the mix of what the papers are. So if you look at uncoated corrugated cardboard, those are the paper products that they're looking to take out of the waste and put into an organic program. And then on the bottom, it talks about what's in other organics. Food, leaves and grass, pruning, manure, textiles, carpet. So if you look down at the percentages, for example, 1.5% carpet, there's very little carpet that they're talking about in terms of the overall program. But again, these are the numbers that are driving some of the cost discussions. So of the 136,000 tons that we collect, other organic equals 62,000 tons of garbage, and paper equals about 26,000 tons. So a total of 88,000 tons we would target to remove out of the garbage stream. By 2020, 50% of that, so our target is 44,000 tons by 2020. And of that, if you look over to the note on the right, about 30,000 of that is your food. And this is, again, in addition to the 79,000 tons that we pick up in the green waste container. So we're trying to just move it from the black container into the green container, or from the blue container into the green container. So 1383, again, one of the impacts to us is standardization of carts. So currently, we used to just buy green carts, put a sticker on them, which is the picture on the lower left, green, red, blue for the different commodities. We switched a few years ago to the colored cart system, but we still have a lot of green carts out there that are used for garbage or recycling. And so as the rule is written, if we had to replace all of those in a very short period of time, we would be looking at replacing 350,000 curbside carts. And then we still, of the 166,000 that are colored carts out, we would still have to sticker those carts. So we're looking at it on a cost basis. The impact to us to buy new carts would be about $17.5 million, or about $1 a month.
Hey, Doug,
Yes.
a couple of years ago, we weren't discussing SB 1383, but we talked about the curbside container replacement program, and my understanding is that you were on a constant, you were distributing the new carts neighborhood by neighborhood. Is that not what's happening?
Right. That's correct. We're
You still have this many to go?
Yes. We have a total of about 550,000 carts out.
Okay. Seems like you ought to speed that up a little.
Well, we were replacing them as the old ones are worn out or need to be replaced.
Well, that's a different answer than neighborhood by neighborhood. That would lead me to think that one month you're replacing them all in Arden Park, and another month in Orangevale somewhere, that kind of thing.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. And no, we're replacing them as needed. We have targeted certain routes to change over all the carts because we're trying to do some internal studies on route efficiencies and cleanliness of the recycling material, for example. And that's part of our program that we talked about for on the educational side for curbside. But we're trying to replace them as needed. Otherwise, the cost could get very expensive to replace all of them.
But do you think the color of the container has anything to do with people putting the wrong things in the container?
It may. And I believe that 1383 really is trying to address that, because ultimately you're either going to have a colored cart and it will have a sticker on the top that I'll show in the next, I think it's the next slide, that actually shows what goes in what container.
Well, the stickers aren't, in my experience, very useful. They deteriorate from the sun and the weather in a very short amount of time.
Right, and that's one of our concerns that we've been expressing, because I believe they're looking at long-term stickers, but for us it's going to be a maintenance issue. If they wear out, we're going to have to replace them. And I do think the stickers will wear out before the carts do.
Yes. I've lived in my house 11 years, and I've had the stickers replaced a couple of times. So,
well, the stickers were, so just to be clear, we're not talking about the colored stickers on the side of the cart. We're talking about the sticker that is going to be required on the top.
yeah, I see that. I'm just saying I don't know if this is a different material in this sticker, but stickers don't last very long. So I think it'd be better to increase the distribution of the colored carts. And just as long as we're on this subject, and that is distribution of the, I don't know, it's not a flyer, the little magazine style on newsprint you put out for recyclables, which I thought was terrific, but I only found out about it because when someone in my office pointed it out to me, because I never received it. And I don't know how many other people do, but I think you ought to mail it out to, a bulk mail to everyone whose garbage we collect.
And that's part of our curbside education program that we're working on.
So you're eventually going to mail it out?
We are going to send out information on what it goes, yes.
Supervisor Peters, I did follow up with our PIO on it. As Doug mentioned, that information is going out, and also we're doing door hangers too, so folks have it at home. I'm going to get you a more comprehensive memo on what the efforts are. I just don't have it at this point.
Okay.
But if you get a new set of blue carts, they are supposed to include the flyers that tell what goes in what material with that cart delivery.
Okay. I just got a blue cart. I increased the size of the container, but I didn't get any material.
Then I'll follow up with that, because that was...
I just use my own experience, assuming that that's what other people in the county experience.
Right,
so
no.
That's why I bring it up.
The program is supposed to be where if you get a colored cart, you get the document that tells what goes in that. And they are, I think, very well done.
But inside the cart?
I think they were a hanger that was on the cart handle, I'm sorry.
Okay. Mr. Cerna?
Thank you. So I'm fixated on this language in the first bullet point there on the what the draft regulations require. It says, or have a lid that is a color that is distinct. So I think I know the answer, but I'll ask the question anyways. Are these lids replaceable with different lids?
Yes.
Instead of incurring the cost $17 million to replace the entire cart, could we look at something less costly that is simply aimed at changing the lids?
And we would be. Part of our issue, though, on the carts, over the years we have bought carts from several different manufacturers. Some of those manufacturers are no longer in business today.
Of course.
So those carts, we wouldn't be able to replace lids, but anything that has on the Rarig or some of the Cascades or things like that, we could probably change color of the lids. And it's certainly something that we would look at, especially given the amount of carts that we have to buy to bring the whole fleet up to the colored standards. And again, some of the information about the carts and the timing, we're assuming that we're going to have to replace carts within a 2 or 3 year period for the $17.5 million. If we can instead go to, as we replace them, go with the new color carts, that will save us a lot of money in the long run. We won't have those big upfront costs. And if you think about it, if we had to go out and buy 350,000 carts and every jurisdiction in California had to go do the same thing for their carts that weren't colored, the manufacturers would not be able to produce enough carts quickly enough, depending upon the timeline.
Thank you.
So that's what we're looking at. We're going to try and buy the best quality sticker we can, because it's very costly to go back out and put new stickers on. More impacts. So how do we collect the material? I've not found a standard model in California that works. San Francisco combines food and green waste, and they've done that for many years, but they do that because they don't have a lot of green waste in the city. So they were really, to meet the AB 939 mandates, they were really forced to be innovators in that process. We know of a company in the North Bay that put in sleeves in the garbage container. They're collecting food waste separately. We know there are a lot of communities that are going with the food waste and the green waste combination. But that changes things. If we add food into the green waste, then we really need to pick that up weekly because of health and safety reasons. So what we've done is we've given you a couple different scenarios. One is food waste collected with green waste, and we look at and going to a weekly collection on the green waste, and that's assuming that we'll be able to, again, one of the things we'd want to look at is can we go to bi-weekly pickup on the garbage? Because what's left in the garbage cart isn't producible, shouldn't smell if all the food is in the other container. So, but we do have a couple of different scenarios there. But at food waste collected with green waste, it could be as much as $5 a month added to the bill. If we can go shift to the garbage going bi-weekly, we could reduce that cost, but it's still $3 a month.
Well, you can't let food sit for 2 weeks.
No. No.
Especially not in the summer.
You might be able to get away with it in the wintertime, but certainly not in the summertime. So, and
you'd have to spend that much money telling everybody we're gonna.
Yeah.
We're switching to bi-weekly now, and then we're switching to weekly, and that just won't work.
And the other companies that I know, or other communities I know that have gone to the moving the food waste into a separate collection, they've all gone where the food waste is picked up weekly, because it is not a community that can go 2 weeks with the garbage. So we're just trying to give you some rough estimates here on what the potential cost would be. Now we talk about...
Before you get to that kind of decision, will that come back in front of the board?
Oh, absolutely. No, this is the first part of this process. We're looking for your input. We haven't made any decisions. We're waiting. Frankly, we need to wait until the regulations are finalized the end of this year, early January, so we have some hard numbers. In the meantime, we're looking at some alternatives. Where would we take our green waste, food waste combination? So this is really the first step in this process.
And Mr. Natoli?
Yeah, so when you say food waste, is it table scraps and then stuff left over from prep, or stuff is spoilage? In your green waste, you put your vegetables and your fruits now? Those can go in green waste as organics now, or no?
Not now.
Not now. So your banana peels and your orange rinds are supposed to go in your garbage?
Yes. Right now, the firm that we're using up in Butte County is strictly composting, and he, at this point, has been unwilling to entertain any food waste into his program.
So with your food waste, it'd be table scraps, it could be meats, dairy, vegetables, and anything else left over, any spoilage. And when they do it separately, you said so how is that handled at the curbside? If it's either on a adjacent hanging portion of your can or whatever, you have to get out and physically remove it and put it in a different part of the truck, or how is that done? I guess I'm curious operationally how you...
No, there's a company in North Bay that has actually put a sleeve in their garbage cart, and so they ask the resident to put the food in one side of the garbage cart and their garbage in the other side.
Right.
And when the truck dumps the material into the truck, there's a divider in the truck, and the food goes into one side and the garbage goes into the other side. So you change the doors on the back, so it's not one big door at the back, it's individual doors.
That just sounds
I know, that's what I'm trying to get
complicated.
It's called a split cart system, and it does work in a number of communities. I'm not sure it's going to work for us. I'm not sure it's the best. Because in that sense, if we have 72 routes, 36 are garbage, we're going to have to modify the bodies on 36 trucks. I'm not sure. It doesn't make more sense to go to weekly collection of green waste, food waste, and then our collection of recyclables and garbage in separate containers.
So when you say weekly collection, so you would go through twice, again, just as you do with either with your green waste or recycles, so you'll be going through a third time through each neighborhood?
No, so if you think about it, if we're going through and picking up the green waste, so right now we pick up the black container of the garbage.
Right, every day, every week, and then
then we alternate it on the other side. So what we would do is take the black container and pick that up every week, and then we'd alternate between, we'd take the green container, pick it up weekly, because that's the green waste, food waste. The garbage container black and the blue, we would alternate.
So you're talking about combining green waste. I mean, I heard you in your presentation earlier, so you would put all that, the table scraps, everything would go in the same with green waste?
With green waste. And then it would go to a composting facility. And if we go back...
These are only two options?
No. That's just the two most prevalent ones that are out there right now.
And again, I guess I'm curious because you're looking for some guidance here. And again, I think certainly this board, through you and Doug and others, can communicate pretty clearly what we think if we know what those options are. Because again, certainly there's the fiscal implications here, but there's the practical implications. You got to have somebody who's going to receive that at the other end.
That's
if you haven't got somebody who's going to receive it, you're going to have you're going to end up landfilling, I guess.
That's correct.
Back to the conversation we had a few weeks ago about recyclables. So,
and that's kind of where we're at in the slides.
Okay. I'll hold my question for now.
Supervisor Frost has a question.
So my question is around the soft plastics. We're not allowed to use soft plastic. That goes to the landfill then. The food waste will just go into the garbage can, and won't there be maggots? And I mean, we'll have to wash our garbage can every week, or?
Well, no, if you think about the food waste that's in the garbage container now, that would move over to the green waste container and get picked up weekly. What's left as garbage would be other materials.
Plastics and paper that has wax on it, or?
Those kinds of things. And those you could go to collection every other week if there's no food in them.
So they're not having problems with flies, with the food waste in these other areas where they're doing that? They're not having problems with maggots and flies with all the food waste in one place?
Because you're picking up the food waste weekly. So that
continues to be picked up weekly?
Yes.
Whatever can you eventually decide it should be in.
Even if we added a fourth can at the curb strictly for food waste, we'd still pick that one up weekly because of the odor issues and the health and safety issues. And that's another option, is to go to a fourth can, but that involves more trucks, much higher cost. Most communities are going with combining food waste and green waste. And so what we're looking from a processing standpoint is we're looking at those facilities that would take in green waste and food waste and compost the material. And that would satisfy our requirements under 1383.
So in your report, it was talking about this could cost $5 to $15 additional fees. That's like 30% of the current bill.
Yes.
I mean, that's a 30% increase.
Yes.
Let us route all our phone calls to your office then.
Yeah, oh, wow. Everything else is going up too.
Again, this is the first part of a long conversation with both the board and with our residents in terms of the impacts.
I hope it's a long conversation. I think people, one, we need to come to an equitable solution, and and two, then the education part is going to be extremely timely.
Yes. From a processing standpoint, CalRecycle has estimated that the processing plants to process all the compostables in the state of California is a $3 billion investment. Now, they've not ponied up money for the process, so they're looking at the local jurisdictions to fund whatever they need to fund for processing facilities. So we just gave you an estimate there. We've seen compost facilities, depending upon the size, the mixture of residential and commercial, one of those facilities could cost as much as $100 million. We're obviously trying to look at facilities that are out there that would be able to take our food and compost that are already established, food and green waste that are already established, that we wouldn't have to go through that big investment. at least in the first part of the program.
Doug, has the state offered any, and pretty good at telling us what to do all the time, but as far as ponying up with any money or help, that gets pretty lean. And so I guess I'm curious about the processing facility infrastructure, that whether it's a public facility or the privates, there's an infrastructure bank at the state, and they can finance certain infrastructure. If this is really where everything's headed, and if it's quick, the reaction you're getting here this morning obviously is going to be probably even much greater by the time it starts, getting to some of the residents of this county and other communities as well. But has there been any conversation about how they might help finance getting infrastructure in place, finance in a way that they could carry it, so that jurisdictions aren't saddled with whether it's change out cans or equipment, or certainly the process itself? I mean, because we're going to bear some of these costs, or the customers are, we know that. But
the CalRecycle official that I heard at the conference basically has that they don't have any money targeted for any of these programs. And in fact, the question was raised during the question and answer session. You're generating all this money off the cap and trade. You have billions of dollars available. And if you look at the last couple of years, the cap and trade money that they've targeted for the waste industry, and I don't remember what the total was, they're only targeting about $40 million for the waste industry, which is really just peanuts. Drop in the bucket compared to the $3 billion that is needed.
Thanks.
There's no good answer there, and to be honest with you, every time we raised the questions with some of those officials, the answer was, you just need to do it.
Supervisor Frost?
Speaking of cap and trade, so we're shipping a lot of these, we're shipping out to other counties and to the Bay Area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are those companies going to get to a point where they're actually incurring too much cost to be able to take all the garbage that wants to come to them because there's not enough facilities? I mean, because they're overproducing methane because of the amount of garbage that they're processing.
Well, the Butte County facility that we're sending our green waste to, Butte County is not in a air quality containment area, so their costs to operate and do open window composting are far less than they would be if you were trying to do that in Sacramento. I'm not even sure you could get a permit to do open window composting in Sacramento with the air quality that we have here. So that's why we're looking at, are there other places that will accept this material that we can ship it to and still comply with the 1383? But we are on notice from the Butte County operator that as of right now, they will not be accepting any food waste. So when we eventually get to that change, we're going to have a facility online. And we've identified a couple that we're looking at that would be reasonable cost.
And is that because they're trying to be compliant with their requirements for methane and all
yes, and they're looking beyond to say, and from a regional standpoint, who produces a lot of green waste and food waste? And they've identified County of Sacramento and the City of Sacramento as potential customers for these materials. And they started that permitting process in some cases years ago.
Did anything ever come of a couple years ago, I think it was called biodigesters, were kind of in the news as the latest idea to get rid of this kind of waste? Did anything ever come of that effort?
Those facilities, for the most part, have been plagued with odor issues.
With what?
Odor issues.
Odor
There's
issues.
the $65 million plant in South San Jose, South Bay, takes in commercial waste. They have a huge odor issue. And one of our senior engineers was down there a week and a half ago, kind of looking to try and answer some of these questions for our department. This was a facility that was built in 2012. I think Doug and I went to the opening luncheon for. Our engineer said every exposed steel beam inside the building was corroded. It looked like a huge maintenance issue because they're taking food waste, green waste, they're sending it into a chamber, they're generating as much methane gas as they can. Once that methane process is done, they move the material over to another chamber and dry it as much as they can and make as much compost. but it's that moisture inside the building that has really, it looks like it's going to cause some big maintenance issues. But I can tell you, when he got home, he was there for part of a day. His wife made him change all his clothes out in the garage, and the smell was not coming out of the boots and hat.
Oh, wow.
And they warned him ahead of time, do not wear anything that you really want to keep. And so we're a little bit hesitant to try and go down that path. The local example that we had, Clean World, they've changed hands in the last year, and they're going to a liquid-based. So they used to take in material from the local commercial haulers, food waste programs, and run that through their digester, and they've ceased taking any waste from haulers, and they're going to a completely liquid-based, and they've actually looked at a rendering permit as opposed to the solid waste permit.
Rendering.
So. So there's no good answer right now, and the cost is pretty prohibitive.
If we were to change, if each resident did their own, what do you call it?
Composting?
Composting, would that change the dynamic of this picture? If each house had a little unit that turns every now and then and it does the composting, would that still be a problem with our greenhouse gas and this?
Well, one, I don't think a homeowner could compost, and they'd have to have a fairly big yard to be able to compost effectively, because I think they generate more material. Two, most people that I know that get the home composting bins, they use them for a while and then they don't. There are people that do it. Yeah. My wife has tried it 3 different times, and I have 3 different versions of the bins, and because it's a constant thing. You've got to go out, you feed it, you've got to turn it, you've got to add moisture to it. It's not just a static, put it in a pile and it disappears.
There's probably worms in there too, and some of us don't do worms.
Worms?
I know I don't.
Not under your sink? No, you don't have
But
those
again,
in your sink?
I try to avoid them.
But again, if you're adding food into that mixture, then you've got the potential for other vectors, mice and
rats.
Rats and those kinds of things too. So
that was a bad question. I'm going to retract that question.
Could I just one other question that comes to mind, though, is that we talk about digesters and so forth. Have we talked with the sanitation district? I mean, they are equipped, obviously, to take large liquid waste, wastewater, but in that obviously there are solids, and they are equipped to have that organically break down and to treat it and so forth, and so when we talk about sludge, and we find that sludge can be reutilized for fertilizing, if it's basically purified to a certain level. I guess I'm curious, have we had conversations about maybe at least a part of the waste stream where they have digester units, and obviously they have to introduce certain components into the waste stream there, whether they be equipped immediately to do this, but over time, it seems to me, we've got, with our utilities kind of working on separate tracks, maybe we ought to talk, at least have those conversations about how we might integrate some of that. And because it is reused, I mean, you keep it out of the landfill. So,
and that's a great point, and they are on our radar screen. It's just that we're not far enough along in the process to really start those discussions. But one of the technologies that's really emerging is that very thing, where they're actually compressing food waste and taking all the moisture. They're doing this down in San Diego, where they're compacting all of the moisture out of the garbage, and that material goes into the sewer plant and helps them with their process. What's left over down there, they end up trying to compost, because they end up with a brick material that you can break up with your hand. So that technology is fairly new. I know that Waste Management is really involved in a couple of those projects, and it's one of those things that we have on our radar screen.
Well, I would just say, I think here, just a final comment on this piece of it, is that obviously we have the landfill that this county has as an asset and operate, and all the things that go with that. And certainly we have a sanitation district that is made up of a large part, certainly people from Sacramento County, but we have obviously West Sacramento and Yolo County folks on the board. But I think it's important that, again, we have within our realm, certainly some state-of-the-art facilities when it comes to the sanitation district, And, with the landfill and upgrades we've done over time out there, the ability to handle waste in different ways. And I think, we ought to, maximize our utilization of that and look at, not just what maybe somebody else does, but, be innovative to the point that obviously we're going to make some investment here, in the next few years that, hopefully go in a direction that takes us to where we want to be and keeps the, rate shock at the, for the curbside collection as well as our business community, at a minimum, but allows us to be effective and certainly meet the obligations that we're going to have in one form or the other from the state. So I would encourage us, though, to have those, discussions sooner rather than later with the sanitation industry.
Okay. Let's let Doug finish his presentation.
Okay. See, redefining disposal, what counts? So we have materials that have beneficial uses for erosion control and things like that. There's really we're trying to advocate for still being able to use those and count those towards diversion. And so that's part of our comments back to Cal Recycle. Speaking of the landfill, they require under this law, under these proposed regulations, some changes to the landfill. So instead of having a current requirement for cover, if we're not going to be in an area for a while of 18 inches, they're going to double that to 36 inches. That presents a cost. We've got to dig up the dirt, we've got to move the dirt, we've got to place the dirt, and now it makes it part of the regulatory inspection process that we get annually from the different agencies. It does create problems for us if you've been out to the landfill, and certainly invite any of the board out. But we have our gas collection system runs across the top of a landfill. Anytime we're going to be working in an area, we have to disconnect that piping, move it, and this would require that every wellhead get raised up in those areas. So there would be some cost to our department to do that, and as well as maintaining that long term. The infrastructure, one of the concerns that we have is the timing. So let's assume that we wanted to put in a anaerobic digester plant or a fully contained building that's a composter program. Those typical facilities are a 10-year process, even if we started today and knew where we were going to put it. And part of the requirements for SB 1383 basically say you're going to do this by 2020. Well, there's no way any community can meet the 2020 threshold if they have to build a facility, not with CEQA, not with all the other things. And that's assuming 10 years without being sued. So that's problematic. That's one of the points that we're going back to Cal Recycle on.
Well, there's your processing facility right there in the picture, right? You just get more blue tarps and more people to collect it?
Okay. I'd like your creativity. One of the things that has us a little bit concerned is the waste characterization studies. So before we did an RFP a few years ago, we actually hired a firm that collected from random houses the recycling material. They went through, much like the two sorters you see on the screen, they went through a process and identified everything that was in the recycling container, and so we got this large item. Large number of tonnage report on how many of each material was in there. That, in turn, we gave to the recycling firms so they had an understanding of what they were going to collect. Under these regulations, they're looking at regular waste characterization. So right now, the frequency requirement that is written in their documents is 500 tons of source separated material, or at least once per day. That's going to be a cost. We're not 100% sure if that's going to be something that our employees can do. If it is, then we're going to have to add employees. If it's an outside firm, depending upon the characterization, how often we have to do it, where we have to do it. If it's at Kiefer and at NARS, 5 days a week, 2 to 3 hours a day. But again, it's not. We're concerned with the language in the proposed regulations that that could be an extremely onerous and costly addition to the program. We're trying to look at some other language. For example, can we do a characterization once a month? But the frequency of characterizations, whether they're based on time, days, etc., are going to add to the cost. And then we have some other statistics about what we think the regulation requires to do at the facilities. Again, it's one of those things that we're trying to work with Natasha Drain and her lobbyists and the local organizations that are statewide organizations that Doug belongs with to try and change some of this. General impacts, there's generator monitoring. This will get a little bit touchy for residents, but essentially in the regulations they're proposing that containers, whether they're commercial or residential, get inspected. That means somebody's looking at what's in the garbage can, and then non-compliance, their fines, right now they have, which I'm pretty sure will get changed, but they have fines starting for residents at $1,000 up to $5,000 per day. I don't see that staying because that's pretty hefty, but we don't know what the backbone of the regulation is, how many times a resident could contaminate their recycling cart before there's a fine. And then the other part of this is we're not 100% sure who's going to be the enforcement group. So there's a lot of communities in California that you have a franchised hauler that does all the work. The county could then oversee the franchised hauler. But we're one of those rare entities where we're both the county and we are the hauler. So it's not clear to us right now how we would fall and who would do the oversight, who would do the enforcement, who would do the fining, whether that would be our department, whether that would be a sister department, whether that's code enforcement or the LEA, or whether that's a different entity. There's just a lot of questions built in here. But again, finding residents for this process, there are a couple communities I know of that take great pride in finding residents. That's not something that we want to do on our side. But right now the regulation says that that's part of it.
So I see that the regulations are effective January 2022. Mm-hmm. Is that when the fining would come into place? So we hopefully would have had a couple of years
right now,
practicing
yes.
But you indicated that it may be lowered. Is this still in discussion in the legislature? Is this something we need to respond to?
What we're trying to do is get Cal Recycle to change before the regulations are finally issued. We're trying to get Cal Recycle to recognize that some of these things are really too onerous and too costly. Can we delay some of these things? So
you're trying to get them to recognize, what does that mean? It's not legislation, Cal Recycle is a department of the state of California?
Yes.
And is this fining amounts and mechanism, is that up for discussion?
That is.
In some way?
Because they are drafting, these are pre-draft regulations that have been circulated by Cal Recycle to get opinions back from the community. And entities and the private haulers, we have a list later on that tells all the different entities that are trying to weigh in and influence Cal Recycle to change some of this language.
So is our organization doing anything to talk to other waste management departments?
Yes.
To band together to discuss the onerous nature of these fines?
Yes.
When will it become finalized?
The timeline that we have here, which is one of the last slides we have, talks about the regulations being finalized somewhere in December of this year. My guess is that since they've moved the final hearing date till May, that end date may extend into January, February of next year.
Doug, can I help step in for a second, just a little bit on the process? So where we are right now is they are in an informal process, which means they can vary the regs, they're taking an input. This has been a long process for Cal Recycle. They typically don't have this many workshops, but they understand the contentiousness of these regulations. And so they keep extending, trying to get more feedback because they're understanding from the groups that I belong to and others that this is a very problematic type of regulation that they're setting up. And so the issue we are concerned about and why we are here before you today is we need to make sure that this board gives us clear direction as a county to move forward to talk to CalRecycle and influence them again about why some of this information we're presenting to you today is so problematic for us. Because once they get into formal rulemaking, so and the timeline will describe this to some degree as well, but I wanted to emphasize, once they're in formal rulemaking, they typically only allow minor changes. Right. So we're talking significant changes in the regulations that we're looking for, and we want to get those in before they go to the Office of Administrative Law with their formal rulemaking.
So do you need a protest letter from the board, or, I mean, what is it you need to do?
No, I think what we would like is at the end of this presentation, Doug has the next steps in there. We just need to hear from you. Is there anything else in there that we've spotlighted? Is there any other items that you want us to comment on? I think on this slide, Doug's basically saying is that those fines are pretty high, 1,000 to 5,000. Could be 100 to 500. We just want to make sure that the approach we're taking on this, that you don't see a flaw in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think $50 would be outrageous.
Yeah, I think this is crazy. I mean, they live in a world where we don't arrest people for thievery anymore, for theft.
You can steal a gun from my house and get a ticket, not a fine.
And you're going to fine somebody $1,000, $500, $100 a day? I know they want us to be serious about it. Yeah, it is.
So this is one of the reasons we're trying to encourage CalRecycle to treat all residential generators as one generator and hold us, the county, responsible for it, because it is unrealistic to go out and penalize every single resident or those that contaminate. And so we're hoping that CalRecycle will see the light of this. In the work I've done with the organizations I belong to, they are in full support of this as well. And so hopefully we'll get CalRecycle to back off us and redefine us as a single generator as a collective.
I think as we finish the presentation, Doug's almost to the end, and you can give us feedback at that point. I think we're getting pretty good direction items that absolutely are concerned. Doug, you want to finish a couple of your slides so we get to the final point on this?
So the slides that we were talking about, the enforcement, there's no good faith effort. So 939 had a provision in it that if you were making good faith efforts that you weren't going to be fined. This does not have that clause. This is at the drop dead date, you're either compliance or you're not. And that's one of the things we're trying to change. State enforcement's listed out there, but basically all of the things that we talked about outside of the curbside collection could potentially add between $9 and $10 per household, and that's how we came up with the total impact.
For every
of
household
this.
in California, or just certain jurisdictions?
For us, well, no, this would apply. This law applies to every jurisdiction in California. But our specific department, we're looking at the impact here could be anywhere from $5 to $15 per month on the residents.
Have they discussed where the money's going to go? Is it going into the general fund, or is it going somewhere else?
It's going to pay the staff and the programs to get rid of these materials.
They're going to fine people so they can pay their salaries. Is that the idea?
Oh, you mean on the CalRecycle side?
Yeah.
The fining?
Yeah, I don't think we want to answer that question. Keep moving, Doug.
So what's next? So we talked about some of the organizations that we partnered with. Certainly CSAC, we've been working with their staff, League of Cities, Urban Counties, RCRC, the big firms, Waste Management Incorporated, Republic Services, and other industry groups, because they all have the same concerns, they all have the same reactions. My reaction to some of these things is exactly the way yours was today when I started reading about this. Estimated timeline, again, on the slide we have April 4th and 6th, and they actually, CalRecycle changed that. It's May 7th and 8th. May 8th is actually here in Sacramento. That is supposed to be the last informal workshop, and then they go into the formal rulemaking process. And with on this current schedule they have a mid-December timeline for that. I suspect that may slide with CalRecycle. And then what's the next steps? County staff, we're trying to meet with CalRecycle. Natasha's trying to help us meet with the governor's office to talk about through some of these issues. I know that Natasha Drain is listening, so any direction that you have to give to her or to us, we're all looking for input from the board so we can include our comments going forward. So
I think you got quite a few comments from the board. Do you want in the response, I think we all agree we'd like to have a comment letter, and that we think the fees are outrageous and not doable. And are there other things as you're going through this process with the state of them making the law, ordinance, whatever they call it, do we need to comment about whether to put household garbage and green waste versus, I mean, what else do you want us to comment on besides the fees, the fines?
Well, you've identified the biggest items that are causing stress in this process. The actual, in terms of what goes in what cart, is really, from their standpoint, left up to us. So we have some flexibility in how we run that program. Again, do we mix food with green waste? That's really...
I think that's a local jurisdiction issue. I think
Yes.
you hit the main point, which is the fees. Doug, is there anything else on a broad policy we need for the board to give us direction on?
No, I got a lot of feedback today. Very welcome
So
feedback.
what we'll do is we'll draft a letter, we'll send it a response, and we'll keep the board informed about what progress we're making on this.
I think,
And
would
we will be
you
coming.
circulate the draft response in case there's a major subject matter that somebody wants to have added?
Absolutely.
I have a question.
Ms. Frost?
Well, do you think you can divert 50% by 2020 and 75% by 2025? Do you think that that's, even possible?
The 50%?
Yeah.
I'm more comfortable with. The 75%,
no.
We're going to end up having to put in some kind of a processing line, some kind of a line like potentially Placer County is, to go over everything that's left in the garbage container to get to the 75. But I will tell you that every community is going to be in that same boat when we get to that point.
Are there going to be some unintended impacts to our federal containment area and our air quality based on, where these different plants are located? Have we looked at that? I mean, does that position us in other areas like air quality to have issues with our all of this?
We haven't gone that far with this process yet. We've really been trying to target, if we added food waste to green waste, where could we take those materials in a cost-effective manner today that would be compliant? Because that's really the first step for us.
Okay, so just to move along to the next item on the agenda, you'll prepare a draft letter and you'll submit it to everybody. If there are
Yep.
additional questions, you can answer them at that time.
At that point, and as this progresses, if we think it's time to bring it back to you, we'll put it back on the agenda and have a discussion.
Okay. Thank you. That's a receive and file. Next item, please.
Okay, for item 52, this is receive a report on the release of the draft initial study and mitigated negative declaration document for the Capital Southeast Connector Camera Road project.
Mr. Blank?
Good morning, Board. I'd like to introduce Derek Minima. He's our the Executive Director of the Connector, and he's providing an information item for your Board on a release of an environmental document on one of the roadway segments. So I'd like to turn it over to Derek.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Morning, Derek.
Yes, I'm here to keep you informed on a recent milestone that we had along the Connector project. We have released the Camera Road environmental document out to the public for public review. Camera Road is the westernmost project along the connector down between Interstate 5 and State Route 99. This is a project that Elk Grove is very interested in, but 75% of it is actually in the unincorporated county. So we wanted to be here and provide you an informational item on how this document's been released to the public and what we are doing to solicit public input. So this meeting is one of just numerous meetings that we are having to solicit public input. I'm essentially scheduling about a meeting a week. And so I've been at Elk Grove City Council, obviously the JPA board. And then after this meeting, I'll be at the Casumna CPAC, and then our comment period on this document ends on April 2nd. So at each one of these opportunities, we're making this information available. I've got this 450-page document that I bring with me everywhere, and we're accepting public comment ongoing until April 2nd. Very quick snapshot of the project. This is the connector that, like I said, begins at Interstate 5. And so what you're seeing there in red is the study area of the project. We are connecting at the Interstate 5 Hood-Franklin interchange, sweeping a little bit further south and avoiding a housing development that's within the city there, and then connecting into Bruceville Road. This initial segment here is about 3¼ miles. It's an expressway, 4 lanes, and we have signalized intersection that are planned connections. This segment is actually a little unique in that is the only portion of the connector that is brand new roadway. So everywhere else we have an existing road that we're reconstructing. This is going to actually be a brand new connection at this pace. Also at this location is the Union Pacific Railroad, which we will be going up and over on the railroad tracks. Moving further east from Bruceville is a 4-lane thoroughfare, more traditional arterial type road. This is again through what is known as the Southeast Policy Area in the city of Elk Grove, a planned development community that has numerous mixed-use commercial, residential in this area as well. And then we connect into State Route 99 at the existing interchange at Grant Line. And if you're familiar with this area, this is where the Elk Grove Mall is planned to be someday. So all along this entire stretch, both segments, we have a multi-use path, Class 1 facility for bicycles and pedestrians along the entire way. This document builds off of numerous previous environmental studies in the area. So this exhibit I wanted to show you to give you a snapshot of all of the different environmental studies that have occurred in this area in their most recent years. So one of the reasons that we are able to be efficient with this document is that we're really taking the information from these studies and folding it into our work. And it's in that it's through that effort that we actually are preparing an initial study and a mitigated negative declaration under CEQA. So the connector JPA in 2012 had a programmatic environmental impact report. We are tiering from that report and doing a mitigated negative declaration. And just like all MNDs, we are studying impacts to various different technical and biological and environmental factors. So very efficient document, but we do take all of the mitigation measures that were appropriate in the programmatic document, and then we bring them into this tiered mitigated neg deck. We've advertised the release of this document in multiple newspapers. We've sent out mailers to every parcel within a ½ mile of the project. We've already had a public meeting. You can see the panoramic shot there. It was well attended. It was down at the Life Point Church off of Highway 99 on March 6th, I believe. So you can see the boards and all the public input. We had about over 50 people attend the public meeting, so a really good start. Got a lot of positive feedback from the public at that day. The document is available. The easiest place is just right on our website. It's also printed versions are available at our office, the county, Elk Grove, and then the library in Franklin. If a member of the public is requesting a printed copy of this document, we're charging $25, but anything electronic, CDs, PDF, provided for free. So. And lastly, I just want to give you a quick snapshot of our next steps and schedules. As I mentioned, this document is closing public circulation on April 2nd. We'll be responding to comments, and depending on how many comments we get, we could be at the JPA board meeting in May for the consideration of the final document. It could move out to June, depending on, again, how many comments and the nature of those comments. After that, we'll be looking into 2019 to begin a right-of-way phase and go on from there. So that concludes my presentation. I'm hoping to answer any questions.
Thank you, Derek. Mr. Natoli?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Derek, for your presentation, and thanks for Dean Blank and certainly Mike Penrose and Ron for working to get this item before our board. I know that myself, along with Supervisor Frost, serve on the JPA Connector Board, either as the primary member or the alternate member, and so we get a chance to see this on a monthly basis. But I think it's important, again, as you pointed out, 75% of that new construction is in the unincorporated area of the county. And I guess a couple quick comments and a question, I guess. Let me ask the question first, is that at the public workshop on March 6th, and there are folks here in the audience today that have weighed in on the proposal, concerns were raised as it relates to certainly the interface between rural farming areas that may be adjacent to the city of Elk Grove, not so much those that are in that southeast policy area, but as you come a little further to the west towards I-5, about certainly the ability to move, as we heard this morning on a speed-related matter, to move goods, certainly just to serve farming operations, some of those on a daily basis with receipt of feed and certainly milk and dairy products, moving to and from the dairies during harvest season, livestock, how you get livestock across. Right now, there's a rural road, maybe heavily traveled, but certainly the ability. But when you have a divided 4-lane structure or 6-lane structure at some future date, but certainly maybe the first part will be 2-lane structure. Those comments were received. Farmers and dairymen and actually folks who truck some of those materials were concerned about radiuses and turns. So I guess my question, Derek, is receiving that comment, how are those going to be addressed? I know Matt Satow has followed up, and certainly the Saunders are in the audience today, but with some of the other folks. But because, again, Elk Grove is the lead on this, and there are costs associated with doing some of those things that may accommodate that interface and make sure that we don't, in some way, have a negative impact, whether it's an environmental document or otherwise, on the ability for those operations to sustain their daily activities, which producing food and fiber for people in this community, but throughout the state in a lot of cases. So, how is it we're going to be able to address that? Because there is a financial component potentially to making some of those alterations to accommodate.
Sure. Well, the JPA as a lead agency is going to have that obligation to address that. And while we recognize that Elk Grove has plans for growth, absolutely recognize that there are existing uses today that we are required to address. And so some of the feedback that we received was very helpful. We are going to be revisiting some of those turning radiuses that you spoke about, making sure that perhaps there's a acceleration lane or a deceleration lane as appropriate for large vehicles to make those appropriate turns while some of the more passenger vehicles can continue their operations. We will be incorporating into the design the ability for the livestock operations to perpetuate. So, I mean, that is absolutely going to be a component of final design. I think right now with the document, it's really only at, call it maybe a 15% concept. And as we receive this public input and this feedback, we are going to be incorporating that into the design as we move forward and continuing our public outreach with the community and specifically with landowners. We've done a lot of one-on-one landowner meetings, and I anticipate that will absolutely continue.
Okay, well, that's reassuring. Again, I know you've done a lot of that, and that's obviously how we received some of those comments, and the outreach is really important. Just one comment then, I had a chance to talk with Ron Vicari this morning, and I know I've talked with Mike Penrose and others, that as this project proceeds forward, looking at what we might do in the town of Franklin as it relates to, certainly we've talked about how that's going to intersect and meet at grade relative to the Franklin Boulevard and the Camera Road connector extension across over to I-5. But what we might do in the town of Franklin as maybe to in a parallel capacity to do something there, and I think it's important to continue to take a look at that. It doesn't necessarily affect this project, but and then I guess just lastly the comment is I appreciate your response, and I think that there's some angst among farmers and ranchers about not so much about the road. We heard from folks this morning. They recognize that that's a sign of obviously of growth and prosperity and maybe customers with regard to some of the products, but that we also have the consideration, so as you said, not to be detrimental to farming and ranching operations that are going to be adjacent to this roadway in some of those locations for a good long time. So,
and I think that we have numerous more opportunities to engage on that public input and incorporate the type of designs and facilities that would be appropriate in there. I mean, this is just one step of several where, before anything's ever constructed, we will have several more discussions.
Okay, thanks. That's all the questions and comments I have, Madam Chair. Thanks.
I think you have no other questions. Thank you for your report. Okay. We need to go back to item 49.
Yes, Madam Chair, we need to go back to item 49 to amend the motion to remove the continuance. The only action required was to conduct the protest hearing.
Do we need a motion to reconsider? Yes. Is there a second? Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Then we need we conducted the protest hearing, we need a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Correct.
So moved.
Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Okay, I know we have some off-agenda speakers. Do we have any other business to conduct before that time?
No.
Okay. Our first off-agenda speaker is Frederick Gale. He's still here, right? Mr. Gale, are you here?
I think he left.
Okay. Our second and last speaker is Martha Esch. Please come to the podium. Ms. Esch, you have a 5-minute limit.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you very much for hearing my public comment. I am from Locke, as most of you know. I come before you today to continue to ask you for oversight of the boards, the public boards of Locke, California. We have 2 public boards who wish to privatize and both continuously violate the Brown Act under their current bylaws. Locke Foundation has not held one public meeting since April of 2016. That's 2 years now. The 32 property owners of our town have the right to elect the 6 of the 13 prescribed board members. We have not received nomination nor election ballots for Locke Foundation since December of 2015. Locke Foundation has not posted where or when they are holding their meetings. They want to keep the rest of us out of our affairs, of our common ground parks that they have made physical changes to without any voice from the 32 property owners or the public. And they operate in concert with the board members of the Locke Management Association. We have double taxation in Locke. We pay property taxes and assessments to the Locke Management Association to repair our walkways, to supposedly manage the town. Our manager quit in 2013. Where's our rebate? These are, can your camera show this? I don't know if your camera can show this picture I've got here.
Bring it up.
We have rotted out walkways. Here's Main Street on this one, right here. There's a car parked on Main Street. This is how close this gaping hole. I've been sending you folks here pictures of this hole along with other trip hazards throughout the town for over a year. I get a quick email back from your automatic email reply, but I've never heard from any of you as to a response. And other people in the town have told me that they've also sent you letters, but we get no reply. You folks are tasked with the oversight of this town, this historic town. This picture here shows the building that I owned for 5 years, that I was sued for from this self-elected board of directors, 6 of whom have vacated their board seats, including Pat Brazel, who represents the county here. She retired 3-4 years ago, has not been replaced. The self-elected board, who do not have third-party inspectors of election as per Brown Act and Davis-Sterling Act, ignore the changes that were made to this historic building that I owned 5 years, was stolen from me through the court system. And look, they ripped down the historic batten and board, 100-year-old batten and board siding off of this beautiful building and replaced it with plywood. Plywood is not like for like cedar, 12-inch wide batten and board, 100-year-old historic fabric of Locke. I was criticized for putting in an ADA door that I had to fight for 2.5 years to get the building permit. I was granted the building permit. Your board here in November of 2012 granted the Locke Management Association a fee waiver to oppose my building permit application. A month later, I came before the Planning Commission. Patrick Maxfield and 3 other board members denied unanimously the Locke Management Association's opposition to my ADA access I was putting into this historic building. I put in that door. I made it look, I used the same historic fabric that I removed to rebuild the door with.
Ms. Esch, you have 10 seconds left if you want to come to your final point.
Thank you. Please put on a motion on your agenda to dissolve the illegal boards of Locke Management Association and Locke Foundation and return fairness to Locke, provide county oversight over our common ground parks and the goings-on in Locke. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other business, Madam Clerk?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay. This meeting is in recess until 2 o'clock. I'll call back to order the March 20th, 2018 Board of Supervisors meeting.
Supervisors Frost.
The roll.
Here. Kennedy.
Here.
Natoli.
Here.
Cerna.
Here.
Peters.
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Thank you.
Item 53 is the presentation of resolution to support the Safety Center's Youth Advisory Council's mission to implement driving safety measures in high school student handbooks.
Okay, presentation. I'll come down to the podium. And I'm going to call Aspen, and I think some of the other presenters want to come forward, and we have their advisor. We have today with us, we're very fortunate to have the Youth Advisory Council from the Safety Center. I think everyone knows where the Safety Center is on Bradshaw Road. Yeah, come on up, yeah. I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves and make a presentation here in just a second, but I want to just acknowledge that I had a chance to visit with the Advisory Council. I guess it was last year I was out and had a chance to talk, and some of the folks that are here today were present. And I extended the invitation, certainly at their opportunity to come down and to be at a board meeting, but also recognize some of their efforts here in our community to reach out to their peers and to perform good work and to actually encourage folks to live safer and healthier lives and lifestyles. And they've got a project they've been working on as it relates to student handbooks, and so I'll let them tell you about it a little bit. And I also have a presentation for all of you, but I'm going to let you make the presentation, introduce your advisors and your fellow advisory council members, and then we'll get back to a presentation, maybe get a picture with all the board members, okay? All right.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Aspen Tanner, and I'm the president of Safety Center's Youth Advisory Council. Our mission as a council is to make a difference in our community throughout California by using our peer influence to outreach directly to the world's youth and by preparing young adults to lead by example for the future generations. We've decided to put a special emphasis on raising awareness in teen safe driving, and we go about achieving this in many ways, from our year-end event, our Teen Safe Driving year-end event in April that is actually coming up, and our motion to change our student handbooks.
Hi, my name is Ratisha Yuvaraju, and I'm the Secretary of the Youth Advisory Committee, and I'm going to be talking about more on how we're going to change the student handbooks. So one of the main goals of the Safety Center is to empower our community to make positive, life-changing decisions. Every year, over 421,000 people are killed from distracted driving, and out of this, it's 48 people every single hour. And the portion of people that are the greatest killed is people under the age of 20. One of the predominant ways we are working to change this is by adapting the student handbooks to have stricter driving rules. A school's purpose is not only to educate students academically, but it is also to prepare students for life. Each member of the Youth Advisory Committee obtained their student handbooks and collectively decided that there was not enough being done to protect students against distracted drivers. And we do not feel that the student handbooks in the status quo are an effective deterrent to distracted driving. The best way to protect everyone on the road is to teach them good driving skills, rules, and ethics while they are first learning. We have focused our efforts on Elk Grove Unified School District and will soon be pitching our ideas on changing the student handbooks to incorporate stricter driving procedures as well as our enhanced driving education program. And the first school we are specifically starting this at is Consumnes Oaks High School. After establishing this program in one school, we would hope to phase out into other high schools. We would like to kindly thank you for all your support and encouragement in this journey.
Thank you.
You want to introduce the rest of your colleagues? Tell us who's here with us here.
Hi, I'm Camila Patterson. I'm the Vice President of the YAC, and I'm also on the Board of Directors.
Maybe tell us what school you're from, too.
Oh, and I'm from Christian Brothers.
Okay. All right. Tell us what school you're from.
I'm from Miraloma High School.
I'm from Laguna Creek High School.
Hello, I am Irene Shelton, and I am from El Camino High School, El Camino Fundamental High School.
Hi, I'm Kamal Yusuf, and I'm from Jesuit High School.
Great.
Hello, I'm Aurelie, and I'm from Natobas High School.
Want to tell us who your advisor is? Who helps you? Who's here with you today?
Today we have Christine Davidson and Molly Patterson, and they are our advisors. Last year they helped us a lot in planning our Teen Safe Driving event, but this year we're trying to take matters into our own hands. We have elected positions now, and we've learned from our last year of being a council, and we are taking matters into our own hands, like I've said. And they are great advisors. They're always there for us. Even when we mess up, they're always there to pick us up and pick up our slack.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, we want to welcome all of you, certainly. Christine and Molly, thank you for your good work with these young people. And again, you reflect, obviously, makeup of a lot of young people throughout the county, and you come from, a variety of high schools and schools, and we're glad you're here with us. So I have a resolution that was approved by our board here this morning, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it commends the Safety Center's Youth Advisory Council and your work with the Distracted Driving Initiative. And it mentions each of you who are on the council, so you're all mentioned in here, and I have copies that are in the blue folders for each of you. But it recognizes that through your work with schools, starting with one high school and hopefully branching out to high schools and schools throughout the county, that you're hoping to not only to update the student handbooks, but to impress upon young people safe driving habits, not to drive while distracted, including texting and talking on the phone and talking to one another and so forth, and hopefully to save lives and to have, as I said, a healthier and safer community. So with that, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I present this to our president, I guess, of the council. Thank you. And that's for obviously to post somewhere at the, where you meet. And there are copies for each of you that are here today, and then also for those that weren't able to attend. So we say thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
If you want to get a picture, we can get a picture if you'd like. Thank you. coming down. Thank you. Do you want to get a picture then?
Yes, please.
Okay. I don't know if other board members want to join or not. It's up to you. Entirely up to you. So.
This is your deal, Don.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So, however you want to get in. Okay. Come on in. Come on in. I'll come over here and run a tour. All right. Can you see us over these?
Why don't you turn around and do it from the stairs? Stand on the stairs and have them face you.
You guys right here?
We'll be in the back.
Okay. Like this?
No, you're right.
Okay. Ah, that Sac County backdrop looks good.
There you go.
Wait, one more moment.
Oh,
thank
get
you.
the next presentation.
Thank you.
The big plaque.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was nervous it was on video. I always do that. Okay, sorry.
You're shooting a movie.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Safety
Safety
center on
Center.
2.
Go
1,
get the Vice
2.
Council. Safety Center.
All right.
Can you get one more? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck
Thank you so
together.
much.
Very good. You bet. Here's copies for your fellow advisory council members, too.
Thank
You bet. Thanks a lot.
And if you want to watch this on television, you can. It comes on at 6 o'clock on Friday night. You'll have to skim through the first half of the day, but take a look for that.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Call the next item, please.
Okay, item 54 is the presentation of gift from the City of Folsom to the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors.
And I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Robert Goss. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Folsom. It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon, and thank you for a moment of your time to make this presentation. And it is really fundamentally just an expression of appreciation from the City of Folsom. You probably have heard that we've been developing quite a trail system in Folsom. It's over 50 miles now, but a key, maybe the most notorious component of that trail is the Johnny Cash Trail, which traverses Folsom Prison property, and the City Council dedicated that trail to Johnny Cash a few years ago. And fundamentally, we needed to do something with that, because you can't just slap a name on a trail just because you think it's a good idea. Ultimately, the good idea has morphed into a public art display. And about a year ago, the City of Folsom submitted a grant proposal through your Economic Development TOT grant. And it really was about 50 weeks ago that we submitted that. And along through your process and your deliberations, we didn't win out through that particular process, but Supervisor Frost in District 4 took it upon herself to recognize what we feel is the importance and the opportunity with this project, and designated her allocation of that to the City of Folsom for the Johnny Cash Trail. So with that designation, we have already embarked on expending those funds. We have retained Sacramento-based artist Don Romo to do the first of 7 pieces that he will do on the trail. He's under contract to develop the mold for a 7-foot bronze guitar pick, which is our first art installation, and we expect that will be done late this summer or early fall. And he was selected through a national competition. And so there's a little bit of irony there in that when we set out to do the artist selection process, I had an arts commissioner suggest to me that we could do this at most statewide and maybe even locally. I resisted because Johnny Cash is an international recording star. He, January 13th, 1968, he recorded Folsom Prison Blues, which resurrected his career, was probably the most influential album that he recorded out of the dozens of albums that he did. But through that artist recruitment process, and it did go nationally, we had submissions from all across the nation. The winner came from Sacramento, California, Don Romo. But as good projects, hopefully good projects go, there was a component that we couldn't resist. We ultimately bolted on the runner-up to our process from Chicago, Illinois, and so we ultimately did succeed in gaining interest and participation across the nation. So our runner-up project was bolted on, which became the 3-acre park part of the proposal. But what I'm getting at is that we have some thanks to give. Supervisor Frost awarded the city, and ultimately the board awarded the city $50,000, and we are sincerely appreciative of that opportunity. And it goes goes part and parcel with the fundraising campaign that we have developed. And one of those components is a limited edition collectible, I hate to say it as an art piece, but a collage of important Johnny Cash memorabilia. The first is we've licensed through the Johnny Cash Trust Folsom Prison Blues lyrics, which is basically our anthem in the city of Folsom. Also licensed a photo of Johnny taken on January 13th, 1968, right in front of the east gate of Folsom. And then finally, the final piece is a license plate from the Folsom License Plate Factory, J Cash 50, in honor of the 50th anniversary of his concert, which was this last January 13th, 2018. So we sell these. They're limited edition, but this is a replica of that. And again, it's our appreciation of thanks to the county for your program and Supervisor Frost for selecting the city for that. So I'd like to show that to you.
So Sue is the representative of the county. Do you want to go down and accept that?
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, very nice.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we think that Johnny would have appreciated this collage with the license plate, because the license plate, the factory, is staffed by Folsom Prison inmates, and the California PIA, the Prison Industry Authority, runs the jobs and training program in all California prisons. And you may or may not know, but all 46,000 license plates a day are made in Folsom Prison for the state of California. No other facility makes license plates, so the ones in your car came from Folsom Prison. But
very nice.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the program, the county's efforts in economic development, and we hope that this fall that you would join us with the unveiling of our first art piece. We think we're right there.
That's cool. All right, do a little posing. Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
More. Nice.
I just want to thank Robert Goss for everything he's done. He was the creator and the leadership behind the Johnny Cash Trail, which is 6.3 miles, and it rides around the prison. And from what I understand, based on what my chief of staff has told me, who lives in Folsom, the Folsom bicycle trail, the whole trail system in Folsom is all interlinked, and you can get from American River Parkway and connect with all those different trails and to the Johnny Cash Trail without any trouble at all. And so
that's been the goal for a couple of decades.
What you've done is amazing, and I can't wait to see all the art pieces in place, and I want to invite everyone to Folsom to come ride your bike and check it out and see how great it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you need help getting it up here, Sue? Can you?
Need help?
Maybe open the door.
It's worth noting that your chief executive, you're welcome, Supervisor. Your chief executive certainly was part of that process of funding and financing a portion of those trail systems. So now you spent a few years helping me work out some of those funding plans and allocating matching funds for that. So thank you. I will leave with your clerk just a folder with some fact sheets about the trail, and there's a mouse pad for your computers. It's a Johnny Cash pick.
Well, thank you.
It's a Johnny
Thank
Cash
you very
trail
much.
pick. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, next item, please.
Need some current license tags, though. It's January 68, it's expired. I'm kidding. I know there's a reason behind that, but.
You want me to put that off to the side, Susan?
We just did.
Okay. I remember when license plates were that color,
Like Elvis
too.
from here.
You remember that?
Yeah, I've got a couple cars that still have those plates on it.
All that hair. You know?
Okay, item 55 is the Sprouts Farmers Market ABC license hearing to determine whether public convenience would be served by issuance of a Type 20 liquor license to Sprouts Farmers Market located at 2735 Marconi Avenue in the Arden Arcade community.
Good afternoon, Chair Peters, board members, Chris Pahuli with Planning and Environmental Review. It's my pleasure this afternoon to present this item, which is a ABC license hearing to determine whether Public convenience and necessity would be served by issuance of a Type 20 ABC license for a proposed Sprouts Farmers Market. The site is located on Marconi Avenue, just east of Fulton Avenue in the Town and Country Shopping Center. It is in the space that was most recently occupied by a Save Mart store. This map, which is in your agenda packet, illustrates that a PCN is necessary given the number of licenses, existing licenses in the census tract and in the 1 mile radius area. As mentioned, Sprouts Farmers Markets is requesting a beer and wine Type 20 license, and the need for a finding of public convenience and necessity is due to the site being in an over-concentrated area and a high crime area as determined by the Sheriff's Department. The subject site's census tract standard would allow for 3 off-site licenses, and approval of this one would result in 6. As additional information, the map that I previously showed illustrates that a total of 24 establishments have licenses within a 1 mile radius, 8 Type 20s and 16 Type 21s. Staff is recommending that the board approve the finding of public convenience and necessity. The Arden Arcade CPAC recommended unanimous approval at their January meeting, January of this year. Public testimony centered around the overall number of licenses in the Arden Arcade area. However, there was no objection to this proposed request. Additionally, several long-term residents that live adjacent to the site attended the meeting and discussed a previous Lucky store, the conditions that they had agreed to as part of their license that were more operational in nature and related to truck loading and truck idling. The applicant's representative stated that they would be willing to include those more operational conditions as part of their business license. So planning staff will be working with the applicant when they apply for their business license to have those operational conditions included in their business license. In addition to those conditions, the standard conditions from the Sheriff's Department will be included in both the ABC license as well as the business license. Those would include no single sales of beer, and then also limiting the shelf space devoted to beer and wine to be less than 1% of the floor area. And as standard, Sheriff's Department is willing to withdraw opposition if concurrence by the applicant of the standard conditions. That concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions. I should also note that the applicant's representative is here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, the conditions that were on the older conditions from 98, said this report says they're related to security, truck delivery protocols, idling engines, refrigeration units, etc. Basically, so those are or are not included in the conditions of approval.
Those are going to be included in the business license, but okay, because they aren't related to the alcohol sales, they won't be included in the ABC license.
Okay. Well, it's the sentence in the under the CPAC states the applicant acknowledged they were aware of the old conditions and will work with neighbors to ensure as many of those conditions will continue to be met. So they would have been helpful to have a sentence in here that says they'll be applied to the business license, rather than this seems a little vague.
Okay, noted.
Okay. I don't see any other questions from board members. Or I do have one, I guess, as the applicant. Do you wish to speak? You don't have to if you don't want to.
I'm here just to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. I don't think we have any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'll move the item. Please vote. No, sorry. Did I open the hearing? Oh. It doesn't say that I have to. I'm happy to open the hearing and close the hearing, but it doesn't say that. Please vote.
Unanimous vote. So we have a few minutes before 2:30. Would you like to take item 58, your nominations?
Yes, please.
For your nominations today, you are continuing to May 8th, the Cemetery Advisory Commission, Consumnes Area Community Planning Advisory, County Service Area 4B, Slough House, Wilton, Consumnes, County Service Area 4C, Delta, Delta Citizens Municipal Advisory Council, Developmental Disabilities Planning and Advisory Council, Fair Oaks Cemetery District, In-Home Supportive Services Advisory Committee, Paratransit, Sacramento County Alcohol and Drug Advisory Board, Sacramento County Redevelopment Successor Agency Oversight Board, Southeast Area Community Planning Advisory Council, and the Vineyard Area Community Planning Advisory Council. And for your matters today, we have the Antelope Community Planning Advisory Council. Supervisor Frost.
I'd like to nominate.
Turn your microphone on.
I'd like to nominate Joseph Kammerer, please, and continue the remainder to April 24th.
Okay. And then we have Carmichael Old Foothill Farms Community Planning Advisory Council.
Yes, I'd like to reappoint Dwight Malloy and Roxanne Stellmacher and nominate Richard Desmond.
Okay. Carmichael Recreation and Park District.
I'd like to nominate Brooke Judd.
Children's Coalition.
Please continue to April 10th.
Cordova Community Planning Advisory Council, Mr. Natoli.
Yes, I nominate Terry Lombach.
Okay. Local Child Care Planning and Development Council.
Recommend nominating Stacy Volsey to the consumer seat and continue the remainder to May 8th.
Orangeville Community Planning Advisory Council, Ms. Frost.
I nominate Mark Heckey.
Public Health Advisory Board.
Reappoint Paula Green as community member.
Okay. And Sacramento Environmental Commission.
Nominate Laura Nickerson.
South Sacramento Area Community Planning Advisory Council, Mr. Kennedy.
Continue to April 10th.
Got it. And that concludes your nominations. We still have 5 minutes.
Okay. Anybody want to dance or anything? Okay, we'll recess for 5 minutes. Okay. Call the Board of Supervisors back to order. March 20th.
Supervisors Frost. Here. Kennedy.
Here.
Natoli.
Here.
Cerna.
Here.
Peters.
Here.
And you have a quorum. Item 56 is the 2030 General Plan Annual Report for calendar year 2017.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is a presentation on all the work our long-range planning staff has been doing over the last year. My name is Todd Smith, Principal Planner for the Long Range and Master Plan section. A little bit of background real quick. This is an annual reporting requirement of the general plan. We present this to the Planning Commission, to this board, and ultimately forward this report on to Department of Housing and Community Development and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. It's due on or before April 1st of each year, and it looks like we're going to make that this year. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of the report, I did want to touch on some of the bills from the 2017 housing legislation package. There were 15 in all. I'm not going to go through all of them, just going to highlight the 4 or 5 that are on the slide here. I also want to note that we do have an in-house legislation analysis team that is coordinating with the county executive's office, the legislative officer there, to make sure that those legislation that are voted on and enacted by the state are carried out in accordance with state law and how we implement the general plan in our various codes. First, SB 166. This one requires some new findings for proposals that build either fewer units or units that are in a different income category than is shown in our housing element. I want to note here that we already have to make findings for some of these projects, but this changes a little bit in the income category, so it's a minor thing, really. SB 35 is a streamlining bill for jurisdictions that are not meeting our regional housing needs allocation. Should be fairly straightforward for us. I want to note there, qualifying projects, multifamily projects, are those that have affordability and prevailing wage requirements. AB 1397, this one we're actually coordinating with SHRA as well as the state HCD to figure out exactly what it means to us. It has to do with certain sites that may not be counted in the next housing element vacant land inventory. Some of the concerns there are provision of adequate utilities and infrastructure, and then parcel sizing. So parcels that are less than less than half an acre and greater than 10 acres would be excluded under this bill. The next one, SB 167, AB 678, should not be a problem for Sacramento County, but this is more of an FYI. It would require findings when the county would disapprove or condition those housing types specified on the slide, and again requires a staff consistency determination. I also want to note here in 2018 there's already been 271 pieces of legislation introduced. We are monitoring each one of them as they relate to the county's business. Some of those obviously affect other parts of the county than just planning and environmental review, but we're trying to keep track. So now moving on to the actual annual report. This is attachment 1 to the staff report, and the content is essentially the major programs and projects that have been accomplished during calendar year 2017. I'm going to highlight the amendments to the general plan that have been approved, go over the 3 growth strategies that the county has. And the annual report also has a summary of applications received. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but it's there if you're interested. And finally, we're going to touch on our 2018 and 2019 priorities in the long-range planning group. A little bit of trivia here. There are 891 policies in the general plan, 648 implementation measures. I'm not going to go over all of them for you today. Just be aware that there's a lot that we have in the general plan to implement.
How does that compare to other jurisdictions' general plan?
That's a good question. I don't have that trivia. I can get the answer if you're interested.
Okay, I am interested, actually. Not the exact number, but...
You just measure the height of the document.
Yeah, print them all out.
Right. How many volumes? Okay. Yeah. So, ongoing projects. We have begun the environmental justice element. This is a state-mandated requirement for jurisdictions that have quote-unquote disadvantaged communities that are defined by the state Cal EPA's EnviroScreen. We have started phase 1. In fact, we were just at the Planning Commission a few weeks ago. We got a recommendation for approval. This will be coming to the board in early May for phase 1. Climate Action Plan. This is a requirement of the general plan adoption in 2011. We have completed phase 1 and phase 2A. We are now working through phase 2B, which is a community-wide climate action plan and adaptation plan. We have done some initial outreach internally with different county agencies and departments to make sure we are all in alignment before we begin public-facing outreach, and we started that public-facing outreach in the last couple of weeks. That includes interested parties from all sectors, nonprofits, the Association of Realtors, North State Building Industry Association, some major development interests in the county, some environmental interest groups in the county. So we're trying to hit all of the folks who we believe are interested in that program. The housing element implementation, we have continued to work on implementing that. This is the 5th year of our 8-year planning period, 2013 to 2021. We've developed a much more robust tracking system for our RHNA allocation. And finally, we have made significant progress on the South Sacramento Habitat Conservation Plan. That should be coming to the board in the next couple of months. And that actually implements a number of our conservation element policies. This slide is just a quick touch on some of the programs in our housing element that I've already mentioned, the monitoring of multifamily parcels, that's ongoing. We do have one policy, or program rather, in the housing element that speaks to supporting infill development. I do want to toot our long-range planning staff's horn on this one a little bit because there are other many policies and other elements, the land use element, the economic development element, that speak to infill development. So we've kind of curated a simple list of those infill policies, taken them out of that big binder, and begun a little bit of implementation work with our Office of Economic Development. We have developed 2 proposals, one through Economic Development for kind of an on-call broker of sorts who can look at site-specific details, potential constraints from an infrastructure or finance perspective, as well as a broader proposal for our office to deal with potential conflicts internal to the zoning code and the general plan and our design guidelines to see if there are any unintentional impediments to infill in the county. We're beginning that work now. The second or third part of that, is a more robust inventory of vacant and underutilized land within the county. Grants for infill development. We occasionally, actually pretty frequently, meet with SHRA on a monthly basis and go over some of the infill development that we're both seeing in their shop and our shop. We try to coordinate on potential grants that might be applicable not just to residential but also non-residential development. We have done a little bit of conversion of older motels for affordable housing. A recent example is the Courtyard Inn project up in the north part of the county. And finally, we have the Housing Incentive Program. This is a program, we call it HIP. It may not be hip, but it's housing. It includes density bonus provisions for certain design criteria in affordable housing. So we have produced educational materials, provided them to interested parties down in the Building Assistance Center downtown, and also out at Branch Center. We've also been in touch with some high-density building customers to let them know that it's available. This slide is Sacramento County's regional housing needs allocation. Over the last 5 years is the snapshot here. These numbers represent building permits that have been issued. I want to say the picture looks a little bit grim here. However, this is not unique to Sacramento County. Of the 539 jurisdictions in the state, that includes cities and counties, 13 are meeting their RHNA obligations, and most of those are in Southern California, where they had a very small RHNA allocation. So this is essentially a statewide issue. There's a number of factors that contribute to this picture.
Could you pause for a moment, Todd?
Sure.
Mr. Cerna?
Thank you. Todd, the chart doesn't tell us whether, it says units, but is it units planned, units zoned, units constructed?
This chart is building permits issued for those units. So there have been permits issued, yes.
Okay, I think it's a really important distinction to be made because the law does not require the county to produce the units. We're not in the business of producing units outside of our role as a housing authority when it comes to public housing. But the law is very clear that we are responsible and need to be responsive when it comes to zoning at appropriate densities for various income levels. So just something to keep clear for future charts. It might be a parenthetical underneath units, or it might just be permits.
Thank you. I will make note of that. And
Thanks.
Next slide. These are the general plan amendments that have been completed.
I'm sorry, Mr. Anatoli had a question.
That's fine. And just when you want to, you don't have to go back to the last slide, but just asking on those numbers. So I know on the very low-income housing that the smallest number permits issued in amount of time has transpired thus far. Was that covered under the motel conversion, or did that motel conversion fall into the low?
The permits for that one have not been issued yet.
Okay. And are we, again, I know we've talked about this in the past, and there are struggles to, get some of these units, constructed, and again, a lot of them done in private sector. I guess I would still encourage, when it comes to some of the motel conversions, again, I have some in District 5 that I think would be good candidates if we could piece the pieces together. I know that Supervisor Peters worked for many years on the courtyard project, but I just suggest that if we continue to lag, and I don't know whether sanctions come with some of falling short in some of those areas, if we need to look at some of those units where you can get 60 or 70 units, and again, there's costs associated with doing that and so forth, I would suggest we want to continue to take a look at that avenue, particularly for the low and the very low income categories.
Noted, will do. We have staff from SHRA in the audience who's also taking notes.
Right, thanks.
Thank you. So the general plan amendments on this slide are all county initiated. Don't need to say much about them other than thank you. You all voted on these. The next slide, these are primarily privately initiated, with the exception of number 4 and number 6, the land use diagram corrections. That was a cleanup. And then the International Airport, ALUCP, we did that at the end of last year. That's just a summary of general plan amendments that took place last year. Now on to the county's growth strategies. So we have, for history's sake, presented here that in 2011, when the general plan update was adopted, there were roughly 30,000 units that could be accommodated within the existing and planned communities. Those are inside the urban policy area. 5 years later, SACOG has a new growth projection of 48,000 units by 2036, and that's just for the unincorporated county. So how do we deal with that? Through the 3 strategies here: infill, and then the approved growth areas, and then pending master plans, and I'll go through each one. Starting with approved growth areas. This represents not just those projects that were approved at the time the general plan update was adopted in 2011, but those that have been adopted since. So Cordova Hills and within Alberta, with the approval of the Northborough project, those 2 combined added roughly 9,000 additional units, bringing us to just a hair under 42,000 units that can be accommodated within approved growth areas. The next slide is the pending master plans. 4 of these are in the Jackson Highway corridor. I'm not going to go into the details of each one here, but those are still in progress. And one of those is also up in Natomas, in the unincorporated portion of Natomas. All 5 of these together, just a little bit over 51,000 dwelling units. The note that I want to emphasize on this slide is that bullet at the bottom, the affordable housing ordinance. So this is one of the tools that we use to produce affordable housing. When the affordable housing ordinance was adopted, or an update to it was adopted in 2014, there were guidelines produced in 2015. The board's direction to staff, and as reflected in that ordinance, is a requirement that the county spend 50% of the affordable housing fees collected within what are known as large development projects. And those are defined as 750 units or more. So all of these master plans are large development projects. Therefore, through staff's interpretation of that ordinance, we are looking for a way to spend affordable housing fees collected in these master plan areas. And staff is advocating, with coordination with SHRA, that it be a 50-50 split. 50% through land dedication, 50% through affordable housing fees for each master plan. And the reason for that split is fairly simple. We don't want to have an oversupply of land dedication and not enough cash, and we don't want to have too much cash and not enough land dedication. So we're trying to strike a balance there. Finally,
could you just pause on that slide for a moment, please, Mr. Cerna?
Thank you. So on that note, Todd, which I think is an important reminder for all of us about what the thinking was at the time that we did the update in 2014. For, let's just say, the North and Thomas precinct, the pending master plan with the highest unit count, the fees that would come from market rate residential development within that project, along with land dedication, the combination of those two would be presumably used to meet the intent of the county's total requirement for below market rate unit production, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And how can we reconcile the unit counts noted as pending master plans, and then your previous slide, I think it was called future growth areas, against approved growth areas, against the blueprint? Do the blueprint designations consider, do approved growth areas and the master plan areas nest within the blueprint designation areas?
In some cases, yes, but not in all cases.
Okay.
I'll elaborate a little bit. So every 4 years, SACOG goes through their update to the MTP SES. They're doing that cycle right now. And they ask local jurisdictions for input as far as projections for land use and where that occurs for their modeling for the next MTP SES. So we provide, as staff, we provide an objective perspective to inform them about potential obstacles to completing certain projects. So if there's a lengthy permitting process ahead of a certain project, or if there's substantial offsite infrastructure that might be a financial hurdle to development of a site, we try to inform SACOG staff of those sorts of things. Ultimately, when SACOG staff produces the MTP SES, they are placing units in certain geographies throughout the region, which is not exactly the blueprint, but they are trying to implement blueprint principles through that plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to wrap up with our work program for the next year. I already mentioned the infill program and what we're trying to accomplish there. With community spotlights, this is something that the board heard at the January retreat. This is something that we're trying to highlight the diverse nature of each of Sacramento County's communities. Every one of them has something different and special. You all know that from your constituents. We're trying to view this through a lens of placemaking, trying to emphasize those amenities in each community, what's good about them, what are their assets, what can we build upon there. We think that this spotlight effort might be a good way to identify some potential improvements in certain communities, maybe some identification of infill sites or some sort of revitalization efforts, perhaps. We don't know yet. We've kicked off that with an internal coordination meeting with all the infrastructure providers, as well as some recreation. For example, regional parks is playing a big role in that. The environmental justice element, I already mentioned, is coming to the board in early May. We are recommending a phase 2 there, but I'll save that for another day. The climate action plan, I do believe we're going to make progress on that this year. I personally and my staff personally wants to make significant progress on that. We will continue to implement the housing element, and we will be keeping a very close eye on all this pending legislation because it does have significant impacts on how we shape or scope the next housing element, which we will begin doing later this year. The South Sac HCP, again, that's coming to you in the next couple of months, and I'm not even going to try to summarize that body of work. It's significant. Finally, our zoning administration team is doing a lot of proactive zoning code amendments. We do those on a fairly regular basis. In conclusion, we have completed several significant projects to implement the general plan. There's still a tremendous amount of work to do. The actual growth last year and in the years prior remained lower than what was projected annually. Obviously, the supply of land in the infill and approved plan areas can accommodate the most recent 20-year projections. And I already mentioned the county's progress toward meeting our share of RHNA is falling short. We're trying to figure out ways to achieve more successes there. And ultimately, our goal is the strategic work program should be our guide to determine our priorities throughout the next year. Finally, our recommendation is a simple receive and file for this 2017 annual report. We will, with your direction, submit this report to OPR and state HCD. And finally, direction to proceed with implementing the general plan, including all those projects that are outlined in the work program. I summarized them here, much more detail in the staff report itself.
Well, thank you for your report. Any further questions for Todd? Seeing none, I don't have anyone from the audience signed up to speak, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is there any other business, Madam Clerk?
No.
Okay.
Nothing on my end.
I do have 2 adjournments. Does anyone else have something?
Madam Chair, I just have one county exec comment.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I wanted to let the board know that we were successful in getting our bond rating upgraded by one of our bond firms.
That's great.
And when I came to the county in 2007, Supervisor Peters challenged me to get an upgrade. We went the wrong way there for a while, but we did. What the strengths they indicated for the county is that strong economy with access to broad and diverse metropolitan statistical area, strong management with good financial policies and practice, and strong budgetary performance. The weakness that they continue to spotlight for us, and we've discussed this, is that weak budgetary flexibility, and that's something that we've been working with the board on how we can get more flexibility in it. And also our debt position is very high, and high bond debt, which leads them to make comments on weak debt and contingent liability. Contingent liability component in here is our workers' comp and general liability. We are not adequately funded in there. But overall, they were very pleased with how the county ended fiscal 2017, and they said that the county has improved. And I do want to give credit where credit is due. The county, we have a fund balance policy that we adopted in May of 2016, and that's one of the items that the spotlight is that we are putting money back into our fund balance slowly, but that is a positive that they gave us. So I wanted to thank the board. And the other person that has worked tirelessly with me on this is Kristen Yates. She's in the back. I just wanted to publicly acknowledge her hard work on this, too.
Yeah, congratulations, Kristen.
Thanks.
Thank you for your hard work. Bill, did you have something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, under member comments, I wanted to just briefly note that I had a conversation with our county executive and our assistant county executive this afternoon. I've also shared conversations with Supervisor Natoli about an issue that maybe others on this board feel similarly, and that is kind of our standardized practice of auditing various nonprofit community members that are engaged on various community initiatives. And I don't know about the others, but I'm hearing from the likes of a handful of folks that feel that they're being treated differently. And I think given the volume of calls and requests for meetings, and general frustration that's certainly been expressed to my office about it. I've asked the county executive to consider coming back in open session to give us an overview of how the county is implementing a standardized practice of how we treat various nonprofit agencies that attempt to partner with us on such things as the Black Child Legacy Campaign and our overall continuum of care for homelessness. So that's something that I believe the county executive is receptive to, and would look forward to hearing back maybe as early as middle of April?
That's correct.
Okay.
If I could, just on that note, one of the work plan items I've had is the internal audit committee, which we've been working through our internal audit. When the recession hit, a lot of our audit components were taken out, and we have been going back into our contracts and starting the audit process. And I think it's timely for us to have that conversation on what it really means when we do an audit and what the standard forms are, findings, management responses, and we can absolutely come back middle of April for that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you. I do have 2 adjournments today. First, I'd like to adjourn in memory of Anne McHenry. Our area lost a noted art connoisseur and a true one-of-a-kind memorable character with the passing of Anne this month. She and her husband, Dr. Malcolm McHenry, settled in Sacramento in 1965 when he began his medical practice here. And she devoted her outgoing skills to fundraising and philanthropy for a wide range of arts and animal rescue organizations, including the Crocker Art Museum, serving in a variety of capacities, including president of the Board of Trustees. Her style was legendary. At one museum board meeting, a long-winded board member was describing his dreams for the museum, and Anne cut him short, propositioning him to show me your checkbook and I'll listen to your dreams. And on another occasion, she appeared before the city council in Sacramento soliciting funds for the Crocker, dressed in a black leather outfit, explaining they were expecting an old lady in hat and gloves, and instead they got me. So needless to say, she was very successful in cracking the whip for the museum's benefit. She was instrumental in bringing the exhibit of the art of the Mamelukes to the Crocker in 1983, which led to the museum adopting a more globally oriented exhibition policy. And she and her husband traveled extensively, visiting every continent except Antarctica and South America, and during many of those travels brought back numerous works of art, many of which have been donated to the Crocker. She was a gifted hostess, which I can say her dinner parties were legendary, and a charming personality and a powerful force for good for enriching our community. And I think it's fitting that today that we honor her by adjourning in her memory. The other adjournment I have today is in memory of Russ Solomon. The lyrics in the song American Pie recall the day the music died, and it felt like that when we learned the founder of Tower Records, Russ Solomon, passed away this month. I think we can all recall going to Tower Records on Watt Avenue to browse through albums and listen to our favorite songs. It was the ritual of being a teenager before the internet. And we all know the story of his success selling used 78s and 45s out of his father's drugstore near the Tower Theater. For those of you too young to know, those were actually kind of records. Then branching out, having standalone record stores, resulting in a global business empire of about 200 stores. Not bad for a kid from Sacramento. His stores not only attracted kids and music aficionados, but celebrity musicians and rock stars like Elton John and Bruce Springsteen. He was also a prominent art collector, purchasing the works of many local artists. As you'll recall, his stores had no dress code. Clerks could have wild hair and clothes, and he followed what he called the Tom Sawyer School of Management, giving employees the tools and letting them figure out how to run the stores. And it worked as music transformed from 78s to 45s to 33 RPM to cassettes and compact discs, but it all stopped due to competition of free music off the internet. And while Tower Records may have passed, Russ Solomon remained a legend. A few years ago, he visited Japan, where 78 Tower stores still operate under Japanese ownership, and the employees greeted him as a hero. For many of us, he was our music man. I'd like the board to adjourn today in the memory of Russ Solomon.
Don't forget the 8-track tapes.
Yeah, do you still have some of those, Don?
Yeah, I still do, yeah. There's something to play them, I can share them with you. So.
Yeah, all of mine are broken. So I'd like to adjourn today in memory of Anne McHenry and Russ Solomon. Very good. So this meeting is adjourned.